Okay, so we are live. And okay, I found it. The lost assignment. Okay, but thanks for your email. Okay, when look for it, go like, what is that exactly? What is images join? Because I got some material from Professor Lever from Carol. She gave me a list of assignments, and it jumped from the passwording homework assignment to the upload assignment that you saw earlier. And on her schedule, which I also found a little bit later, this is her original schedule.
So I'm hoping you're extending the deadline for this.
Oh yeah, it's already extended.
Okay.
So in here, in terms of the homework assignment, there's file upload, and it's right after session passwording, which is exactly the way I copied it, because she gave me a list with all the hyperlinks, with all the URLs, and go like, okay, I'm just gonna put it here, put it here, put it here. But when I read the description of file upload, write to file is pretty easy. But,
yeah, that's okay.
But file upload is like, there's a disconnect here. What is this images underscore join thing? I never talked about it. I never saw it either. Then I checked all her notes, right? The instruction to talk about things. It wasn't there either. Go like, okay, that has got to be somewhere.
Are we skipping it then?
No, we're not gonna skip anything. Are you kidding me? We're not skipping.
We can skip it even if we want to.
Yeah, there's no skipping stuff in this class. Okay, so let me tell you how I found it, okay? Because this might be something that you can actually learn and go like, oh, so this is how we can actually find out secret stuff sometimes. Okay. So this is the homework assignment that is mysterious, and well, thank you for closing the door quietly. Now this one is mysterious because when you read the instructions right here, remember that all of this has to be maintained with the image underscore join table. It's like we never really talked about what is image underscore join, okay? And the notes doesn't talk about it either. I read all her notes, which are kind of helpful, but that was never talked about. It is almost as if there's a missing homework assignment between this one and the passwording homework assignment.
Yes.
Okay, so I try to find it, right? So the way I found it is to go like, okay, let's try this.
Also, it says in the beginning, we already have attached the image, and now we're going to give the user an option, and we
I was
never
talking
attached
about
the
stuff we
image.
hadn't done.
Yeah.
That's what I posted.
It was an image, something, if you looked on her old.
But this is how I found it. I keep going until I find something that is for this class. So these are not for 410, right? So I kept going back, and then I found it. Images table.
Oh,
There's a lost homework assignment.
in November. Huh.
Well, I mean that's the original schedule. I'm not really paying attention to the original schedule anymore. Yeah.
Images table is basically where you have image ID and image, right?
Right. So
Address of image, because your image is in the file.
exactly.
So, but then image link sounded like you're creating a link table where you're linking, I don't know, from many to many, and you're trying to break that into.
Well, so let's go ahead and read this homework assignment, because this is the link between the passwording assignment, which has nothing to do with uploading. So this is the homework assignment that should be done before the uploading homework assignment.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and talk about this one, and we'll make the due date. At this point, I
Our
just
final is like in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
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 So we have, oh my God.
We got time. So we got time, right? 2 weeks.
2 weeks to finish the assigned homework.
Yeah. We're not going to finish all of them. Okay. There's no way we can finish all of them. So we'll just kind of go with whatever pace we can go and try to finish as much as we can.
What's gonna be your final?
Yeah, what is the final? Is it
Okay, Carol doesn't do
Have
final
finals,
exams.
yeah.
Yeah, she has
Yeah,
projects,
That's why I
right?
took the class.
Yeah, that's why I took the class.
Yeah,
Right,
so
This assignment is a project, right? It's just like a huge block.
yep.
Normally what Carol would do is she would have us do these pieces of the main project, and then at the final would be that we turned in the website that looks nice and the project's on it and all the links work, and that was.
But that's how we are doing this homework, right? Isn't it?
Yep.
That's what
Yeah,
she
so-
would do.
Yeah.
I thought that there's a page that said final. I mean, final project page.
Yeah, it was never new code. It was always.
Okay,
like,
this is her schedule. So in her schedule, The final is no class meeting, projects due. Hmm?
Go back up a little bit.
So basically, you
Like right
finished
there.
everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
Basically,
final
your class is
details?
looking nice and
Final
it's working, so that's the
details.
final.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning saying the last of our assignments and stuff to go over. That's what.
I've been in like 5 of her classes. Every time it was finish all the stuff you've been working on, make it look
Mhm.
nice, fix whatever you need
Yeah.
to fix, and that would be what you turned in for the final.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're gonna have a different kind of final, this time, for this semester.
Okay.
I haven't decided what to do yet, okay, but there'll be some form of assessment. It's not going to be a lot of points, but I still want to I want you guys to show me and demonstrate that you understand the concepts. It's not going to be something like a project like this because this is a gigantic project, which I cannot tell whether you understand this specific concept, that specific concept, that specific concept or not. So I think the final exam is going to be like open book, open notes, open web. Okay, you guys we'll all be here.
That's. Oh my god! I really have bad test anxiety. This is why I signed up for
Mhm.
both her classes. Well, I like Carol because that's what she doesn't have, books, and she doesn't have tests or quizzes and stuff like that. That's why I signed up to take these classes because I know I'll flunk stuff that I do have tests in because I have really bad test anxiety. Just talking about it right now is getting me worked up. I don't know, I just feel.
Well, somehow I need to have some kind of assessment so I can give you a grade. Right? Yep, go ahead.
If you don't mind going on the arccis.net and go under my page.
Okay. And your last name is?
Gursky Alina.
Can you spell it?
Gurskiy.
G U R
Yeah, right there.
A.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Okay.
This class.
Mhm.
Go on the very bottom of the final, yeah. And then the HW. Okay, so that's what I found.
Oh, okay. See, that was not given to me either.
I was
Okay.
doing how you did it, because one time we didn't have the list, so I was going through the numbers looking.
Oh, so you're just sequentially searching through.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
I
going
didn't
keep
know this,
forward,
so I
forward.
put it in the page. where-
I see. That's very nice. Good job.
So I don't know if that's.
Okay, so complete the following scripts below. This will be required, creating multiple web pages. So it looks like a homework assignment to me. The project now allows user to upload an image with the article. However, it doesn't limit the size, so it wants to do the size limitation. Next and previous. There's no way to limit the number of blogs or articles that show up, so you want to do it in chunks, right? Page, first page, second page, and do paging basically. Charts, write a script that takes statistics from the database and display in a graphical form. The chart should show the number of users in the database along with the average number of posts and the maximum and minimum posts, as well as the distribution of posts amid the various subjects. Okay, that would require us to talk about how to generate the graphics.
We never talked about these things.
We have not yet talked about it. We have today's lecture and next Thursday. Okay, so we got approximately 2 lectures left to cover some of the material. Now, in my mind, the final exam is just going to be testing on concepts. Okay, okay, this is this is a code here. What does it do? Okay, what is the output? Okay, if I have these things as the original tables and I perform this query, what's going to be the output? Okay, that sort of thing. So it's not like a calculus or math exam where I would go like, okay, this is a formula. Okay, this is an expression. Take the integration over when x goes from here to here. So it's not open like that. It's more pragmatic. Like, okay, what is this code, or how do we do something specifically, that sort of thing. So I don't think I'm gonna go do the same thing with the final detail because we simply do not have enough time to cover the details to generate thumbnails and stuff like that. The next and previous is probably doable because we can limit the queries and say, okay, go from here to here. Okay, only give me this many results. Starting with a particular offset. So that can be done relatively easily. So we can certainly do that part. So we'll see how much we can go over today because I found the missing homework assignment. So we can go over the missing homework assignment first, and then next week we can go back to the one that we are supposed to do. So file upload. So basically, this is the missing one. This is the one that we're supposed to do before the uploading homework assignment. Okay. So with this one, there are these point distributions, and the first thing we have to do is to create two tables. The first table is called FB images. The second table is called image join, and that's what that term is coming from. Image_join is coming from this missing homework assignment. So for FB images, okay, the primary key is image ID, which is basically just an integer that is auto-incrementing. And it has two fields. One is called image, and the next one is called ALT, which is what you will store your alt tag, okay, or alt text. If you want your website to be ADA compliant, you need to make sure that all the images have an alt text. Have you guys taken cisw410? Some of you have. Okay, so it's a very important topic. Is ADA compliance, especially if you work for the government or educational institution. Okay, because even Target got sued by the Federation of the Blind when their website was not ADA compliant. Okay, I'm not going to get into the details of ADA compliance and the case with Target, but potentially an organization can be sued big time. Okay, when they are not ADA compliant. ADA compliance originally was only applicable to government websites or sites that are paid for by taxpayers. Okay, because the idea is, okay, everybody pay their taxes, including people who are visually impaired. So as a result, the content on every single website should be accessible to people, sighted or otherwise. Okay, so that was the original idea. So when Target was, challenged by the Federation of the Blind and go like, okay, our blind people cannot, shop on your website because we cannot really see, we don't know what is on our screen that we are ordering. Okay, people with sight can see the product, but people without sight, it's like, okay, what is on the screen right now? What am I looking at? What are you guys looking at? I cannot see what's on it. And the Federation of the Blind, challenged Target and go like, you have to make your site, compliant to ADA, rules and whatnot. And Target says, no, we are not going to spend money to do that. We already have a phone line to take orders for people who are not sighted. So you guys can place your orders already, just not by going onto our website. But the Federation of the Blind actually sued Target and won, and Target had to pay like $1 million or $2 million or something like that to the Federation of the Blind, and update their website to be ADA compliant. There were more cases like that too, okay, but the Target case was basically it set the precedence for all of the other lawsuits. So anyway, the alt tag is important. Okay, so the next table, so this particular table is really only here to keep track of files or images that you have uploaded, so that each file in the system, each image that you store in the system has an entry in this table. Is that okay? I'm not really sure about the FB or why it starts with a prefix of FB. Yep.
Aren't actually loading the physical image into this table? So,
well, we'll go ahead and read the rest too. Okay. But we have to create this table. The next table, you can see the next table does not have an ID primary key, because this table is what we call an associative table. It is a link between the table that we are creating in the first step, which is FB images, and main content. And that's why when you look at the fields, one is image ID, which links back to an entry in the original, the FB images table. And the next one is content ID, which is linking to the main content table. Yep.
When we edit subjects or authors, we did not create a link table like this. We just took the author ID and put it in main content. And similarly, we took the subject ID and put it in the main content. So why we are doing this? With
That's a
the
good question. Okay, so let me rephrase the question so it's recorded,
Okay.
because it's a very good question. So the question was, we do not have an associative table like image_join for authors or for subjects. Why, in this case, we are going to have this table? The only reason that I can think of is this allows a many-to-many relationship.
That's what I thought.
The other one does not. The other one does not need that type of relationship. Okay, go ahead.
Just to make a comment about many there, it says you need to add a couple of images to this file, but then it says one for every entry. Now I have a lot more than just a couple of entries in my main content. But when you're saying many to many, does that mean then that I could have 2 or 3 image files, but then associate those
With one entry in main content.
with one or with many entries in main content?
So, okay, so the whole concept of many-to-many. So let's say you have 3 images, okay? So you got 1 cat, you got 1 dog, and you have 1 horse, okay? So you have 3 images. Is that okay? So then you have 3 entries in FB images, 1 entry corresponding to each image file, okay? And let's say you have 6 articles, okay? You have 6 entries in main content. The first one talks about how a cat befriends a horse in a barn. So now that article will want to bring up the cat image and the horse image. So that is the difference between the author, because each entry in the main content only has one and only one author. It has one and only one subject. But in terms of images, it can bring up any number of images.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I didn't picture that. I just pictured like you have one picture and you will put it on top of your content.
But that would be the only reason why it has its own associative table. Yeah, go ahead.
So the question that I have here is that in the image file, the images are 1-to-1 or 1-to-many or many-to-many?
In the images?
The images to the content. Are we talking
Images
about
to main content
Well,
is many-to-many, and that's why you have to go through the image_join associative table to achieve the many-to-many.
okay, so what's confusing about that is 1 for every entry in your main content. That sounds like a 1-to-1 relationship.
Okay, so let's go ahead and read the rest, because I haven't read the whole rest, to the class yet. So you need to add a couple of images to the FB images table, 1 for every entry in your main content table. The varchar field called image should have the. I think this is a typo. This really should have been FB images. I think that's the problem, is there's a typo here. Would that kind of make sense? Because the next sentence talks about the varchar field called image should have the file name of the image, such as cat1232.jpg, which implies this entire thing in the parentheses is really talking about the FB images table and not the main content table.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
Because then otherwise we'd have to upload like 20 or 30 or 40 or 20 pictures.
Exactly. So it seems to make sense that this part here, the main content, is really a typo. It really should have been FB images. Is that okay? All right. So so in your mind or on your printout or whatever, just kind of cross out this and replace it with FB images. The alt field, the alt field should have a description of the image for the alt tag. I don't understand why it's called an alt tag, because it really is an attribute of an image element. But everybody talks about a tag, okay, but it's actually an attribute. Just, terminology kind of thing. The image join table tells us which image goes with which content entry in the main content table, which further kind of confirms that this part is a typo. It really should have been FB images. Last, for every image you just put into your FB images table, you must find an actual image and upload it to the folder in your assignment folder. Call the folder graphics or images. So you need scripts. So this is how you set up the table, and then you have to have the scripts or the web scripts to do the following. In the add script for main content, or the add logic for the main content, give me the ability to add images. For now, just give me a list of images with radio buttons next to them so I can select. I should, however, have the ability to add my own alt tag. Okay, so this part is linking an image to an existing entry or to an entry in main content. So when you're adding an entry in main content, then you can select an image to be associated with that particular article. It seems to me this is what it's asking for.
And how are you going to display that image?
Well, I guess we'll continue this and see how it is supposed to be done. Delete image. When I delete an entry in the main content table, the entry in image join should be deleted, but not in FB images. In other words, just because one article is deleted, doesn't mean the cat picture should be deleted, because many other articles may be still referring to the cat picture. Yep.
One more question. So
Yeah.
since we're using radio buttons,
You can only select
that's
one at a time. Yep.
one to many, not many to many.
That would seem to be the case.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, edit script will give me the ability to change the image. The current image should appear pre-selected when I go to edit. Display image. On your main display page, the image, so it is singular, which also means at this point there's only one image that can be associated with one entry, should appear as the first thing in the content area. Float it to the left so it displays nicely. Okay, so based on the description here, okay, we could have gotten away with just a field in the main content table just referring to the image ID, okay, because it's only that one article only has up to one image they can refer to. The change to make it so it's many to many is just changing the add here. So instead of using radio buttons, if these are replaced with checkboxes, then it becomes easily many to many. But that's the original description. I'm just gonna go with it.
See,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm still stuck on how I'm going to display the images in the image table. So we have the image table, so the user should be picking from them, right? So how do
Correct.
I show all of those tables in a drop down?
Okay, so right here it doesn't say anything about how it should be displayed. Just give a list of images with radio buttons next to them so I can
So
select.
just the image name, not the actual image. Because what I was thinking was like, you have thumbnails and you say, yeah, that's the image I like, and then put that in.
This is prior to the notes talking about thumbnails.
Yeah.
So I think what this meant was actually displaying the full-size picture and then have a radio button next to it. So you can select which one. Yep.
The image or just the name of the image?
It doesn't say names of images. It says a list of images. So I'm assuming these are actually rendered IMG elements and not just referring to the alt attribute of the images. But I could be wrong.
Not the
because
alt attribute, just the
file name,
image ID, not the image ID, but
the file name.
the image bar chart.
You mean this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the name of the image, right? Because
Well, it'll be with a JPEG tag or PNG.
right. So Yeah, I have some comments about this one too. So the field called image should have the file name of the image, such as cat1232.jpg. So that's really the name of the file itself. Now when you do something like this, the next homework assignment is going to have problems, because let's say I uploaded a file and I just say it's cat.jpg, okay, and then somebody else says, I don't like your cat, I want to upload another cat to the website, and I'm going to call my file cat.jpg too. That's not going to work, is it?
It will, because it's putting at script number 2, puts the date and time stamp before the file you file name.
You could do that.
So then it becomes a unique name, so you don't have to worry about
True. Okay.
it.
So anyway, this is the first homework assignment, the one that is prior to the upload one. And the key really is to, this is the table that has to be created. There's no getting away with this one. This one is optional because, if it is not a many-to-many relationship, it is not necessary. Yep.
I'm just wondering if it really matters if it has the same name or not when you have a different image ID number.
You cannot store it because it can exist in the table separately, but the file has to be created inside a folder. So you cannot have two files of the same name in the folder.
In the folder, okay.
Yeah. So that's the problem. It's not so much the problem of we cannot have two entries in this table, because image ID is an auto-incremented integer, which means every entry is guaranteed a different ID. But the file has to exist outside of the database. It has to be put into a single folder. So inside that one single folder, you cannot have two files of exactly the same name.
So something that I think I heard was you call it something, but as it gets saved in the directory, you change it by either the author ID or something.
There are several ways to do it. You mentioned the way to do it, which is by the date of your upload or the time, and combined with the author ID, so you try to make it as unique as possible, right? Okay, so I am going back to the notes here. I actually wrote something about this too. Okay, so this is just my notes. You can kind of take it with a grain of salt, because the way I write, is kind of, in a certain way. But when you scroll down, linking images to a database. Okay, so I'm going to read this. I know this is a little bit harder to read because it's all text. So I'm going to highlight the sentence or the paragraph that I'm talking about. A relational database is not designed to store large files. Even though you can, it is not designed to do it. It's not efficient at doing something like this. So even though most databases, like MySQL, has this feature, it's called a blob, B-L-O-B, which stands for binary large object, okay? So if we want to, we could upload a file and create a blob entry in the database. So the image is actually a part of the relational database. Then we don't have to store it separately. But a relational database is not efficient dealing with blobs, okay? It can, but it's not what it's good at. So as a result, the linking between the image and the database entry is just conventionally using individual files, and then we use a database entry to kind of index those files that you have uploaded, which is what your what that image. Okay, I cannot remember the name of the assignment. Which is what this assignment is about. Okay, creating a table so that each image file that you upload has a corresponding database entry to specify, hey, this is this image, this is the alt attribute, and so on and so forth. And if you want to store,
in the table, we would just have the image name that we stored in the file, right?
So in the table, this is what it has. It has an image ID, which is a unique integer. It has the file name, and it also has the alt description. But now the question is, what name are you going to use to save the file on the server? On the client side, I don't really care. Okay, if you want to maintain your images like your digital camera does, IMG, 4 digits, .jpg, fine. Okay, that's not my concern. When you upload it to the server, am I obligated to keep that file name? That's the first question. I'm not. Okay, I can choose to rename the file any way I want. Okay, so I want to show you one thing, which I think will really help to understand all this stuff. Let me go to Moodle. Do you guys know what Moodle is? Some of you know. Okay, it's going to be in the final, No, I'm just kidding you. Okay, so Moodle is a learning management system, kind of like D2L, kind of like Canvas, except it is open sourced. You don't have to pay any licensing fees to use it, to install it. You can run it locally on a Windows machine if you want to. It's just a really nice little tool. And I want to show you a few things. This is the actual production system that I have been using for a while. This is the uptime. In other words, it's keeping track of how many hours, days, weeks, and whatnot that the server has been up and running without a single reboot. 1,058 days, which is a little bit shy of 3 years, with no reboots. It is that stable. It's still running, with fairly good efficiency. Yeah. Yep. Go ahead.
Is that how long the actual Los Rios server, the server that the website and all of our content run, is that how long it's been up without a reboot?
No. D2L requires periodic reboot. If you try to use D2L, I think on a Saturday at about 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something like that, it's down. It has weekly downtime to perform maintenance.
So this is how long Moodle has been on without being rebooted?
Yep.
Okay.
3 years, almost 3 years. So it's super stable. But what I want to show you is not this. Okay, what I want to show you is, okay, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so this is, okay, so when you think about something like Canvas, something like D2L or Moodle, a learning management system that is open to the entire campus, or in this case open to the entire district, you would probably kind of imagine there has to be a lot of files involved, right? Because every professor wants to upload a few files, images, and sound files, video files, and whatnot. Okay, and we have a lot of classes, a lot of professors, a lot of files, right? This is how Moodle handles all the files that people upload. It breaks all the files down to. Okay, are there any questions I can answer? Okay, can I answer your question? Can I answer your question? Okay. All right. So let's focus on this and get through this first. So this is how Moodle handles its files. Okay. There are 256 subfolders here, and then each subfolder has a kind of strange name, right? 00 all the way up to FF. These are hexadecimal digits.
So basically, it's one character, the whole thing.
Yep. So we can randomly pick one. Let's say 91, and we look into that folder. What do we find? The same thing. In other words, it has 256 subfolders at the root level. You look up one of those subfolders, it itself has 256 subfolders. So within the subfolder of 91, we have, so let's pick another, like 4B, okay? So we'll CD, change directory to 4B. Now we have the actual file. In this one is empty, so there's nothing to see here. This one has a single file. This is the file. Okay, let me move this up a little bit so the people in the back can see it. This is the file. What the heck? I mean, how can you tell what this file is?
That's almost like your password thing.
It's a hash.
Yeah.
It is a hash. It takes every single file that people upload and turn it into a hash, and then use the hash to determine, which one of the. Okay, quick quiz here. It will be on the final. What is 256 times 256? 256 squared. You can use a calculator if you want to. Approximately, come on, guys.
Yeah, I got it.
64K.
65,536.
Exactly. Okay. So it has that many subfolders, okay, to contain all of the files. Each of the bottom subfolder can have any number of files, and each file looks like this. Okay. Why?
Security?
Not so much security. If it is for security, this is called obfuscation.
So
to
using
implement
indexing, so it's easy to.
So it's efficient, so that it is efficient. Because if you try to store 10,000 files into one single folder, you can. Linux can handle it, but it's not going to be efficient. Okay, looking for a particular file in a folder that has thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of files is not going to be very efficient. But doing it this way, now you have basically 1/64,000th of that number in each folder, which makes it more efficient. Okay. Okay. So now is the next question. So as far as Moodle is concerned, how does it know what this is about and how to utilize this entry in the file system? We have just seen it in your homework assignment. It has the table. So there's a table to correspond to each file that has been uploaded. So that table actually keeps track of the original file name. It will keep track of the file type. It will keep track of who uploaded the file, when the file is uploaded, and so on. But as far as the file system is concerned, this is what you see. Next question. If I am just an end user and I want to look at this file and go like, okay, I want to find out what this file is, what kind of file are we talking about? How do we do it? It has no extension. I'm basically checking how many of you know Linux commands.
No.
Yep. No. Okay. That's okay. It's not required. I'm trying to talk about it. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, so this would be how an end user, like as in somebody who does not have administrative rights, or maybe somebody who does have administrative rights but isn't like the owner of the server, would they be able to change the ownership?
Of this file? No. A Moodle user cannot change the ownership of this file.
Okay, so refer to a Moodle user then.
Yeah, so you have to sign in to Moodle first, and then if this file is associated with you because you are the user who uploaded this file, then you have access to the file and say, okay, do you want to delete this file? Do you want to link this file to this class over here? Do you want to link this file to a message over there? Then you can use that file.
Oh, okay.
So that's why the magic is all done using the database. The file itself is just like that. Okay, but the command called file itself, which is awfully confusing, this is a command. F-I-L-E file is a command, and its job is to figure out what kind of a file it is. So right here, it has identified this file to be a Microsoft Word 2007 plus document. Okay, which means it's after 2007, could be 2017, could be anywhere between 2007 and 2017. Yep.
So if I'm an end user, I care less how you store this file.
Yeah.
I want to see my images file, my image number 3.
Yeah.
So how do we find this with this thing?
In Moodle?
Yeah.
So it has exactly the same kind of setup as the homework assignment. Okay, so this is when you can use my tablet again for that purpose, because I can draw pictures. Okay, where is that window? Okay. Sometimes it pops up in a window that is not active. Yep, it's right here. But it appears to have hung up. Oh, there we go. And I'm at the wrong page right now. Let me go back to this class. Go back. 410. Cool. There we go. Okay. So the question is, okay. So let's take a look at what is in this entire picture. So from the file system perspective, which is on all the way to the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, sorry, we have actual files, okay? And the file, in this case, I'm going to use this example here. Okay, oh, wrong window. Let's see. So this one, I'm just copying here, 919 cisw410 blah blah blah. Okay, and switching back to here. Go back to here. Okay. So as far as the file system is concerned, there's a file called 9198 blah blah blah. It's inside the 91 subfolder first, and then under the 9A subfolder after that.
Oh, I see.
You
Yeah,
can
very
see,
ingenious.
yeah. So it's systematic in a certain way. Okay. So this file, okay, is related to. So the rest is done by database. So this part is a database. So in the database, it has a particular table to describe, okay, what are the entries that we have stored in those folders, okay? So we can call this, FB, files, okay? So there's a particular entry in this table where, it would have one field here that spells out the exact name of that file, 919847 yada yada yada. So this particular database entry knows exactly where to find that file.
So that's a pointer to that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But this particular entry also has some additional fields. Okay. So at least one of these additional fields is going to be the original file name. Okay. The name under which it was uploaded. Okay. So for this one, it might be, I don't know. Okay. Maybe syllabus.doc, which was the original name, the name as intended, as uploaded by the user. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. And then it might have another field here, user ID, which is just an integer to internally identify which Moodle user is owning this file. Is that okay? It might even have additional fields like a description, okay? Just words to describe what this file is about, okay? So from here, it would also have a unique ID, but I'm suspecting this one here is already the unique ID of the file itself. So now when I have a homework assignment and I say, okay, with this homework assignment, I need a link to a specific file, I can now have an entry somewhere else in the database referring to this ID to uniquely identify a file entry. But when the student is going to download the file, okay, when I have this file appearing as a download link on the homework assignment page and people are right-clicking to download it, I don't want the students to download 919847 blah 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 with no extensions. I want the students to download it as syllabus.doc. So when I create a download link, I can utilize these additional information to create the download anchor, so that when it is downloaded, it makes sense again. Okay? It is a particular file with a useful file name. Okay? So this is how commercial, or large-scale database systems, this is what they do when they need to maintain a huge number of files, is to make use of the file system folder system of the server itself to actually store the files, but then it has a particular table in the database so that it can track who owns which file, when is it created, and so on and so forth. So is that concept okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so getting back to our assignment. Okay, so this is the assignment and this is my module. So the potential problem is name collision. So in the case of your homework assignment, what if many people want to upload cat images and they're all named cat.jpg, because everybody knows that Carol likes cats.
Right.
Okay. In fact, I just made cat food for her cat last week or week before last. It's a special cat because it needs a raw food diet. but so are mine. So I'm used to making raw cat food, so I just made a new batch for her cat. It's good for at least a whole month. Yep. So, but anyway, getting back to this problem, we have, name collision because everybody wants to upload cat.jpg. Okay, which is not good. So that's why it may not be beneficial to store files using the original file name as uploaded. In other words, the file name that the end user is using, on the end user's own computer may not be the same name that you want to use to store that file. Now, when you're doing this homework assignment, forget about this, okay? I don't want to complicate your homework assignment any more than it is already. Okay, but in a large system where people can upload any file, you might need to take this into consideration. So instead, it is more systematic to utilize, an auto-incrementing field of a table to systematically create new file names, and as a result, it's guaranteed to have no collision because they're sequentially numbered, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So it's not possible to have collision. Okay. Because the file is now associated with an entry in the database, which is also what your homework assignment has, additional attributes can be stored, such as the alt attribute. So this is actually a part of your homework assignment, is you can store additional stuff. You can even store when the file is uploaded. Okay, you can store a timestamp or date timestamp so that the database entry can remember when the file is uploaded. You can even store who uploaded the file. Okay, which author, who signed in and this file was uploaded. That might come in handy later on because you might want to say later on and say, okay, you guys cannot see the images of each other anymore because somebody felt that somebody else's image is offensive. Okay, so now you need to hide images from each other. I can only see my images, you can see your own images so that we don't offend each other. Is that making any sense? So having the user ID to be associated with the image can make sense. Is that part of your homework assignment? No. Okay, but I'm just saying what other things can be associated with an entry that is representing a file. Okay. In a large application, the number of files can be maintained can be a large number, and as a result, files can be stored in many different folders for efficiency. That's exactly what I just demonstrated in the case of Moodle, where you have 256 folders at the first level, and then at the second level, each subfolder by itself also has 256 subfolders. And that's why you end up with 65,536 actual subfolders to contain files. And that will give you, a fairly efficient way to look up files because now each folder doesn't have an insane number of files anymore. Well, that brings up a question. How many of you like to take pictures using your phone or before their phones, digital cameras? Okay, I like that response, because I think, how many gigabytes do you have?
Oh, on my stuff, I
Yeah.
think 82.
82 gigs?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. You have more!
I have 120 something on my phone.
Yeah.
On your phone alone, you
I
have
got
120
the
gigs.
card.
Wow.
Like one folder has 5,000 pictures.
Uh-huh.
And I have multiple folders. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the question is, how do you keep track of those images? Do you guys create subfolders, or do you just keep everything in one single folder?
I keep everything in one folder. Well, if you take a screenshot or the pictures that you take, it separates it automatically.
Right.
So I have my screenshots, and then I have photos that I've taken myself.
Okay, go ahead.
No, whenever I'm bored, I just go through my pictures and I take water trip, all those pictures, put in one folder.
Okay. Well,
That
with
doesn't happen often.
right, but with phones these days, you can tag your pictures, so you can search by tagging,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. Yeah, go ahead, Izzy.
Between my video and my picture work, I have like 3 terabytes of information I need to sort through that I'm still sorting through by creating subfolders within subfolders and trying to find one place where I can get to everything. But Yeah, I use a lot of subfolders and a lot of management software.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you can use a database to help you keep track of the files.
Well, I mean, those types of things are already provided for me by other services, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you create this, kind of seemingly? Oh, okay, you guys are not looking at it because I'm not there. Okay, so how do you keep track? How do you create a file like this, a file name that is seemingly random, so that you can utilize the efficiency of this kind of folder system? There's a way to do it. It's called unique ID in PHP. So there's a function called unique ID. Okay, let me show you that function. Unique ID in PHP. It is misspelled. Okay, it's not UNIQUE and then ID. It is, I guess, abbreviated. Okay, unique ID, which is kind of an oxymoron. It is not unique because when it says right here, this function does not guarantee uniqueness of return value. Great. Then why would you name it as unique ID?
Right.
So I guess the idea is, if it has a collision with a file already, you basically call it again. You basically call it as many times as it takes until it gives you a file, a name that is actually unique, that you have not already stored. Okay. But this is a way so that you can come up with some kind of pseudo-random file name, so you can basically store the files using that particular manner. But if that's not the way you want, you just want sequential, that's fine. Use a sequential number. File 0000001, file a bunch of zeros and then 2, and so on. That's fine too. Okay? So it all depends on what kind of scale you're dealing with. If you anticipate, well, at the most I only have like a few thousands of files, okay, sequential numbers will work just fine. In a single folder, it will still work. But on the other hand, if you're anticipating like hundreds of thousands of files, you do not want to put those into one single folder. Even if your file system, your operating system can deal with it, it's still not a very good idea. Just because it is not efficient to look for a single file among hundreds of thousands of files. Is that okay? So I'm giving you exposure to things that you do not have to deal with in your homework assignment, but in a real website where you allow people to upload images and stuff like that, you have to take those things into consideration. Are we doing okay so far with this? All right, cool. So I am moving on from this homework assignment to the next one. Because I think we talked about all of these already. On your main display page, the image should appear as the first thing in the content area, floated to the left, so it displays nicely. So that's mostly how you use IMG as a tag, as an element, and what attribute you add to it so that it floats to the left. Okay, I'm not an HTML or CSS kind of person, so you guys probably know more than I do.
That's float left. That's what it is.
Huh?
Float left.
Just float left? Okay. Okay. So is this assignment okay? All right? Okay. So the next assignment, which, nope, not this one. That's the scary one. Where's the next one? The next one is file upload. Okay, so I'm deferring the assignment like at least by a whole week. Okay. So with this one, it's a lot more fun to me because now you get to upload.
Well, we did this one last week.
Huh?
We did the file upload last week.
No, we are supposed to. The due dates are all messed up too. So when you look at it,
but in your lecture you talked about it.
yeah, I did, but I did not even talk about the upload mechanism.
You talked about pretty much everything other than the
I did?
change mode thing. Chmod. You said I
Chmod?
will do it for you, but you didn't do it.
I did? No, I don't
Yeah,
think.
we talked about permissions, and you said okay.
But I did not talk about the actual mechanism by which you can access the file, which is using the super global variable files. I don't think I talked about that.
No.
Yeah, so that's basically what we need to talk about today, so that you can you can write the scripts to do it.
Well, we just copied Carol's script. That works.
No, I'm not hearing that. La 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 la. Okay. So with this assignment, which is uploading, you are now not pre-uploading a bunch of files and then you're just letting users just choose what image they want to associate with their content. Okay. Now you can upload new images, okay, to the folder, and now your users can have it. It's much more dynamic. Okay, you're not stuck with a cat, a dog, and a horse. Okay, now you can upload new images. You can upload images of plants, images of scenery, images of a city, and so on and so forth. Okay, so to me this is much more interesting because now you have to understand the mechanism, of uploading files in PHP. Is that okay? I think that is important. Okay, if you want to become a web developer, being able to process and being able to accept uploads, file uploads, is of paramount importance. Okay. All right. So we'll take a look at this one. My module actually has a sample program as well to talk about it. I borrowed some of this from the PHP website, but I also made some modifications. Okay, so the first part is really doing just the processing. The second part here, which is really hard to read because it replaces all the space with these symbols to make it clear that this is a space character. So instead of looking at this, I'm just going to go to the PHP website to look at how to upload files, because that one actually has all the same information but presented in a much more readable way, because it doesn't have all the underscore stuff to when you look at the file. Okay, so the first part is the form. In other words, when you want to submit and upload a file, you probably want to use a form. Okay, because the form, there are several things that are important that we did not have to specify before. The first one is the encoding type. This is not encryption, it is encoding. Okay? So when you're transmitting a request from a client, which is your browser, to a server, you can choose the encoding type. Normally, the encoding type is very simple. You only get one part. But when you want to upload, you have to make sure that your encoding type is a multi-part form data. Okay, the multi-part being the most important part, because the file that you're uploading is taking up a particular part of the request that you're sending to the server. So this is important. If you miss this part, you cannot upload the file. The second part, which is action, is you don't really need it, okay? Because this one, if you don't specify an action, it would just be using the default page, which is the page that you're in at this point. So this part is optional. You don't have to specify it. Stretching, right? Not questions.
Yeah.
Okay. This part is important too. You cannot upload a file using a GET request, period. Okay? So when you upload a file, you have to make sure it is a closed method, and also making sure that the encoding type is a multi-part / form data. So those two are absolute requirements. This part is optional. Okay, if you want to specify a maximum file size, you can specify that as a hidden field, but it has to precede the input field of the file itself. Okay? This part is interpreted by the browser itself. So if you try to select a file that exceeds this particular file size, then your browser would say, nope, cannot do this, file is too large. And then the actual button to let you select what file to upload is this part here. Okay, it only has it's a regular input element. Okay, the only thing that is special is the type. Okay, type can be text or text field, can be a button, can be other things, but in this case it is a file to signify that this is a button to let an end user choose what file they want to upload. Is that okay? I will give you, an actual, done, script, so you can actually see what goes on, when you run a script like that. And then you have the usual submit button. I would add a name to the submit button itself, just so that in your own script you can say, oh, did someone submit a script? Did someone click the submit button, so you can check for that. Okay, so I would put a name attribute in the submit button itself as well. But in this example, they did not. So is that okay? Does everybody understand what kind of a form, kind of minimally you need in order for an end user to upload a file? Okay. That.
It just happened.
It doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
It only happens sometimes.
It worked okay. It didn't do anything.
Sorry?
We cannot thank him because he
Oh.
left it earlier, but it didn't bad.
Yep. All right, so what I'm going to do is to show you an actual script doing that. So I'm going to sign in to arccis.net. Go to my public HTML folder. And I got this done already, but I just have to kind of neuter a few things because it might look a little confusing. So I'm going to get rid of a few print statements. Okay, get rid of that. That should be good. So I'm going to go to that page, arccis.net, form.php. I did not put in all the line breaks, and that's why everything is on a single line, okay? But the browse button is the file type. Is that okay? So this part is corresponding to, corresponding to this thing here. So when you use a file type input, it displays with a browse button. You click the browse button. Let's pick something to upload. So we'll pick something that's too big to upload. Okay, I'm going to pick this one to upload. You click upload, and it is submitted. File is received, but there's no temporary file name because it's too big. It could not upload it. So let's try to upload something smaller. Okay, this is a smaller file. Okay, click upload, and you can see it has a temporary file name, and it is my script will actually store it as well in the same folder. Is that okay? So that's the form to present the user input. So the end user can specify which file, okay, to upload, and then a submit button to trigger the actual uploading of the file. What about the receiving side? How does your script understand that, oh, somebody just clicked the submit button, a file is uploaded, it is uploaded successfully, and now I need to move it from the temp folder to somewhere else. Okay, so there are a few steps that you have to do in order to save that file to a particular place under a particular name. Okay, all right. So getting back to the discussion, Carol's notes talk about this too. So it's not just my notes. You can also refer to Carol's notes on the same subject matter. Okay, but I'm going to refer to this part, or I can just show you the actual script on my page. So let me go back to here. So this is the script, and as usual, the logic to process a submission is done prior to the generation of the actual code of the web page, because you want to do all the processing that has been requested. Then you generate the HTML document accordingly. Okay, so that's one thing that you probably want to remember is do not interleave the processing of the previous request with the generation of the page of the current content. Always do all the processing first, then you generate the content. Okay, so the first line here, the one that I'm highlighting right now, is really just asking, did someone press the submit button of the form? If nobody pressed the submit button, I'm not even going to bother to process the rest. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why I want to name the submit button, because if I don't name the submit button, I don't know what to check. Okay? Okay, so if somebody did click the submit button, then I want to check Now this is new, okay? The other one is not new, you know, I'm just using post instead of get. But this is new because the underscore files super global variable is an associative array. If a file is actually, or an attempt is done, you know, to try to upload a file, you know, using that particular form, then a particular entry called uploaded file would exist because that is a part of the form. Let me go back to the form just to present, you know, just to so they can read it. I cannot reset this. Okay, there we go. So when we look at this and look at the source, the input is file. Okay, look at this part here. The input type is file, and then the name of that particular input element is uploaded file, which is also what I'm checking in my script. So in my script, this is checking to see if the input element for uploading a file has been used. Is that okay? If this is not set, I got nothing to do. On the other hand, if this is set, then I have to check, okay, did I receive a file? Okay. So to know whether you have just received the file, okay, I'm not doing a very good job here, by the way. The first thing I do is I said your file is received, and the temporary file name is as follows. But you can see that if I kind of mess up and do not specify anything and then click upload, it will still think that it has received the file, but actually there's no file uploaded. Okay, and that's because I forgot to check one thing. The one thing that I forgot to check may actually be in the notes here. Nope. Oh, it is. Okay. This is how you check whether the file is actually uploaded correctly. So this is kind of like a double indexing. Okay, so let me point out why it's called double indexing. The super global variable is called underscore files. Okay, it is an associative array, which means to get to the different items inside this associative array, you have to supply a string to specify which part you want to access. So the first indexing is using uploaded file, which is a string, to identify that particular file. You can upload multiple files at the same time. Okay, in the same form. Okay, in the same form, you can present an array of input elements, each one being of a file type. Is that okay? That can come in handy. Okay, if you're thinking about, okay, I want people to upload a lot of files, upload, select a file, upload, select a file, and upload. That can be very tedious. But if you allow people to select multiple files and just click submit once to upload, like say 10 or 20 files at a time, that can be advantageous, and that can be done. So when you look at this thing here, it is by itself also. Yes, question? No? Oh, okay. So when you look at this entire thing, it is by itself also an associative array, which means you can use the square bracket indexing thing to find out, okay, I want to find out more about this file upload item. So the one thing that I'm checking right now is the error, which is also in single quotes because it's a string. This is a constant. This constant sounds like an oxymoron, right? Upload error okay. It is actually the error code to represent everything is okay. Okay, so you want to check the error code first, because if the error code is anything other than upload underscore error okay, then the upload was not successful. Something went wrong. We don't know what, but something went wrong. So this is what I'm missing in my own script. Let me add it back. So I'm going to add it here, and we can always add it here and say and underscore files string uploaded file bracket error, and go as square bracket equals upload error okay. And we need, nope, that looks good. Okay. All right, I just saved the file, and we'll go ahead and try this one more time. I do not specify a file to upload, and I click upload. And this time it only says a file is uploaded, a form is submitted, but it did not report that the file is uploaded because it has an error. Okay, there's a problem. So are we doing okay so far with checking the form first? Did someone click the submit button? And then you check the underscore file super global variable to see if the transmission has a problem or not. Okay. Okay, getting back to the script. So once we get past this particular point, if a file is actually uploaded, I print a very simple message and say a file is received, and it has a temp file name. What is going on here? Okay, let me submit the file so that you can see it. So once again, I go back to this desktop file and click upload. Okay, so this time it is successful. A file is in fact received, but it has a temp name, which is /temp/phpgc uppercase WTCZ. What is that? Well, as it turns out, when you upload a file, it is created as a temporary file in a temporary folder. Okay, but that temporary file will only last as long as your script is active. The moment you get to the end of your PHP script, that file is gone. So in your script, you better decide what to do with this file before the end of the script, because otherwise it's going to be gone. Is that okay? All right. So let's go back to the script. What I'm going to do here is this thing here. What do you think this function is doing?
Will upload the file.
It's going to move the uploaded file, isn't it? Which uploaded file? You can have many. Well, so what you do is you supply the name or the path of the temporary file that is created. This portion specifies the /temp/php blah blah blah, which is just a temporary file. It only exists for the duration of your script. Okay, so that's why it is important to move it from the temp folder to a destination. Now, I'm not using any really specific destination, so I did not specify a folder, which means it is going to move it to the current folder. And I'm only using the base name, so I'm stripping all the other additional information of the original file name. So the name property of the uploaded file is only the name portion, okay, with the extension. So that is the original file name that I'm uploading. So what can you expect in this folder at this point? What is it called again? Okay, I know it has a desktop extension. There you go. File Firefox pm.desktop. That's the file that I uploaded. It is now in the current folder. Now, for your homework assignment, you do not probably want to do it in this current folder. You want to create a subfolder to contain the files that you're uploading. So this way, you can avoid the potential issue of some people who are naughty decides to upload a file that is also called admin.php. Wouldn't that be kind of a disaster? Okay, let me say that one more time, because it seems like not everybody is getting it. The script that you're running is called admin.php to let people do the upload, right? And if you choose to upload to the current folder where admin.php is, if the file is cat.png, it's cool, okay, because you probably don't have that file. If the file name is doc.jpg, it's probably okay too. Okay, excuse me, I'm gonna have to mute my my Ring app. Okay. There we go. Okay, that's probably okay too. But what if someone decides to upload admin.php?
Interesting results, yeah.
It's going to override your admin.php, okay? Which also means that person, if that person knows what he or she is doing, that new admin.php can go through the whole database, okay, try to figure out what is going on, search through the whole folder and do all kinds of bad things, with your account. That would not be a good thing. So you want to quarantine all the files that people upload to a subfolder. At least it is not the folder where your script is sitting.
We do it on image, and also we do only JPG, not other files.
Sorry?
We should upload into image folder.
Yeah.
And also we should upload only, we should allow only those images which has the extension of JPG.
That is a test right in your script which says that the file type is JPG.
Yeah. We are, if we do it, so no one can
That's part of
upload
the
.php file or something else.
Actually, I have named my log file as admin.log, and every time I delete it, I'm so scared that I may delete my admin.php.
Okay, well, so anyway, so this part is something that you have to change from my script is you have to specify a subfolder to put the file into. And then the second thing is you want to know what it is before you move it, okay? All right, so how do we know what kind of file I have just uploaded before I decide this is safe, let's move it? Well, just because it's called a PNG file doesn't mean it is a PNG file. Just because it has an extension of the JPG doesn't mean it's a JPG file, right? So how do you know that this is actually legit?
Well, that thing you showed us before.
Yep, exactly. Yep. The file command can be used, okay? So I'm going to illustrate how you can check the kind of a file before you move it along, okay?
Yep,
go ahead.
The type, I mean.
Sorry?
You mean how
The MIME type?
The type of the file?
Yeah. Okay, so at this point I have the file already, and I want to check what kind of a file it is. So what I'll do is I'm going to use a string here and store file result. And system is a subroutine in PHP. Whatever you specify as a string in system is going to be run as if it is on the command line. So anything that you can run on the command line, you can do it in system. Like ls, okay, you can do it in system. CD, you can do it in system. PWD or print working directory, you can do it with system. But in this particular case, what I want to do is to use the command file on the, on that thing, the temp file name. So $_files and then bracket str uploaded file, temp name, right there. Okay, and then we can print it. Okay, so we can print the temp file as a identified type of file result, and then br. Okay. All right, so I have just made a simple modification to the script. Let's do it one more time. Okay, so browse. Let's go to, let's see whether it can distinguish tell that this is a C program. Okay, that it's a C program. Not that it is relevant to this class, but we'll check it out. So it says, it has it's a C source, the source code of a C program. It is ASCII text. That is exactly what the file is. Cool. Let's upload something else and see if we can distinguish the type. Okay, so we go to browse. We got autofocus.png. Cool. Click open. Click upload. And it says right here the temp file is PNG image file. It even reports the resolution. Okay, the dimension of the image file is 363 by 321. 8 bits per color. RGBA, the A stands for alpha, non-interlaced. It identifies quite a few interesting things about the image file. So this is potentially something that you can use in order to check out the type of a file. It appeared twice, okay? If you haven't noticed, it appeared twice. Because the first time is here, all the way down to here, okay? That's the first instance. And then the second time is here to here. And that, I think, has to do with the call to system is doing two things. It is returning the string itself, but it is also outputting at the same time. Whatever the system call is actually, whatever the command is printing, it is directly outputting into the HTML document too, which is not something that I wanted to do. So let's check out what we can do to stop that. Okay, system is just like the C version of the function that it executes the given command and outputs the result. So it depends on what it means by outputting. Is it returning as a string, or is it actually putting it into the output stream? The system call also tries to automatically flush the web server's output buffer after each line of output from the command line itself if PHP is running as a server module. If you need to execute the command if all the data from the command passed directly back without any interference, use pass-through. Okay, so I should be using pass-through instead. Okay, fine. Oh no, that is actually just using the output. I want it to come back as a string. Okay. Return values. Return the last line of the command output on success and false on failure. Stores the return value of the shell command in return value. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. Because I don't want it to appear twice. That's basically what I'm trying to do. Okay, we'll say okay. Let's try it one more time. Just reloading would do. Okay, reloading is going to re-upload the file, and it's still doing it twice. We still see this is the first. This is the first instance, and this is the second instance. Okay. I cannot stop it from generating the output itself. Okay, let's look at pass-through and see what it does. Exec pass-through popen. Okay, the pass-through command is similar to exec in that it executes a command. This function should be used in place of exec or system when the output from the Unix command is binary and needs to be passed directly back to the browser. A common use of this is to execute something like bpm plus util that can output an image stream directly by setting the content to da-da-da-da-da. That's not what I want. I want the opposite. Okay, I'm gonna backtick operator. Oh, whoops, that's what I need. It's just backtick. Okay. All right, so instead of using system, which is the nicer way of doing things, backtick is taking the actual output of a command and put it into a string. So this is the actual easier way to do it. Okay, we'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, then I'm gonna give up for now. Okay, array to string conversion on line 14, undefined variable system result. Okay. Oh, this file result that I want to print. But it says, oh, okay, I see. Got to get rid of this part. Okay, so backtick. Okay, so just checking. All right, so give me one more try. There we go. So this time it reports correctly. The temp file has an identified type of this. So we got it. So because it is now a string, you can now parse this particular string and look for the words that you are looking for, like JPG, PNG, GIF, and so on. If the rest is something that you don't need, you can use, what do you use? We have already talked about a PHP function that can help you look for certain words within a string. Which one is that?
What is it?
It starts with a P. Preg.
Preg, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
but
preg underscore. There's replace, there's match, there are a few other ones. Match, exactly. So you're just trying to match, in this case, PNG, JPG, GIF, all the known, formats that you want to accept. Okay. Now, would this work if the original file is not even named PNG?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to the user folder, and which file did we upload? Where's the file that I uploaded? Right here, autofocus.png. So I'm gonna be naughty, and what I'll do is I'm gonna go to, okay, let me log out of Moodle first, and then we'll go to the folder, look up PNG, and I'm just gonna change autofocus.png to admin.php would not be a good name. It would just clobber, any admin.php. So I'm gonna call this one gibberish, like that, okay? And then we'll upload it and see whether the script is smart enough to figure it out. Okay, so we now look for the gibberish file, which is this one. You can see how in Linux the file browser still understand, this is a PNG, we know how to deal with it. But it would have fold windows. Okay, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I would definitely consider this a, not the full story, but Windows basically made up file extensions and then decided that they were important.
Yep, it still identified the type. So it's not doing it by extension, it is doing it by examining byte sequences within the file. So this is something that you might want to kind of keep in mind, because a lot of websites, or a lot of recommendations is to use the MIME type, M-I-M-E, because when your script is uploading a file, it automatically associates a particular type to the file that it is uploading. But it is not always accurate. Okay, somebody can hand code a command line client to pretend to be an actual browser and upload a file that is not a PNG file, but pretend that it is PNG. Okay, but it cannot fool the file utility program, because it actually looks at the content of the file to try to figure out what it is. So if you're using your script on a Linux type operating system, this is a tool that you can utilize. Any questions?
So
Questions?
If you're not using it on a Linux system?
Hmm?
So if you're not using it on a Linux
If you're not using a Linux system, which is kind of doubtful because most web servers are Linux based. If it is not a Linux based server, you're probably not going to use PHP. Because Windows servers tend to use, what is that extension? ASP, okay, or Java instead of PHP. So when you're using PHP, you're probably living on a LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP stack, which means these commands are probably going to be there. On the other hand, if you are not using a Linux-based system, then you're probably using ASP or basically Visual Basic to write your web scripts. Is that okay? Making sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Visual Basics, kind of the language I know, so.
Okay. Well, it's all programming languages are about the same. At the core, the syntax may be slightly different. The way they handle and upload the file may be slightly different, but it's just different mechanisms, but the same kind of result. Okay. Any questions? So now you're going to be combining your file uploading. Okay, so let me go back to the script first. So what you're going to do with your homework assignment is you are combining this script here, except after you move the file to the folder, to the images folder, then you have some additional stuff to do with the database. You have to go into the database and say, how do we create an entry in the database table? Insert.
Insert, yeah.
Insert into FB images.
That's the easy part of the assignment.
Yep. Then you have one more entry in the FB images table. So when the user is creating a new block entry, now you have one more item for people to select. So are we okay? Yep.
Can I ask, how do you show the information of the file? It's not the system, but at first you use the system.
We're kind of looking at it, on the CMD part. These two lines. That's how we do it. The first line, is just creating the command itself. So CMD as a variable is really the command that we want to run, which is file FILE space and then whatever file you want to find the type of. So that's the first line. The second line is using the backtick, so you have to be really careful because this is the backtick, not the single quote, but it's kind of like the back quote, which is the upper left-hand corner key, which is the same key that gives you the tilde symbol. This is the unshifted version of that key. So this is a backtick, this is also a backtick, and then we put the command variable in the inside, which means we are executing a Linux command as if we type the command on the command line, but the output of the command is captured as a string. In this case, and then it will be used to update file result as a variable. And then file result as a variable is just printed in this case. I do not do any further processing like preg_match to see, okay, is it one of the acceptable types? But you can add that code to use preg_match to say, is it PNG, is it JPG, is it GIF, or name whatever file format you allow people to upload. Yes?
So can I ask about base name?
Yes.
So you have $ my name equals base name, that file part.
Right.
And then down below, you're using move, upload, file, but then you're using base name again.
Yes, so base name is a function that will strip all the path specification and only leave the file name and its extension alone. In other words, if the original name is /tmp/ blah 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 / blah 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 blah, it will get rid of all that path specification and only have the file name itself remaining. Okay. Two things that I can do. One is to search for base name so that we can actually use the PHP documentation to kind of help us. So given a string containing the path, which means it's going to use / to separate the folders, it will strip everything except for the last component, which is the name of the file. Yep.
So that's what's removing the temp.
Yep.
But the name is not the temp name anymore.
That is correct, but I'm not doing it to temp name. I'm doing it to name. In other words, this part here, I'm not using the temp name. I'm using the name that it was used for uploading purposes. In other words, I don't need to know the entire path of that file on the computer of the end user. I just really need to know the name.
So is that path in temp name or is it part of files?
There are two things. So the name attribute applies to the name from the client's perspective. So the end user, when the end user select a file, go to a folder, double click on the file, this is the name of the file from the end user's perspective. Temp name, on the other hand, is the name of the temporary file that is recreated on the server side once the post request is processed.
Right. But where is the path? Is the
The path of.
Of the file that.
Okay, so the path of the temp name is a part of temp name itself.
Oh, okay.
I cannot strip that because that is actually important where the file is located.
I was just wondering if that was in the files part or if that's still in temp name.
It is still in temp.
Okay.
Yep. So what you just asked, is kind of interesting because how many attributes is associated with the file that we have just uploaded? That seems like a pretty good question to ask. If you read the PHP documents, you can probably find out. But I can write a subroutine to do just that. Okay? Is anyone interested to find out everything there is to be reported for a file that is uploaded?
Sure.
I'm interested. No one is interested. Okay.
No, you are going to check anyway, so yeah, we are interested.
What? Say that again. What?
You said you're going to show us anyway. So
I'm gonna show anyway.
so
Yes.
we're interested.
Yeah. Resistance is futile. Okay. I'll call this traverse array. Okay. And it takes a single parameter, which is which is array. Okay. So we'll see what this can do. And don't worry if you can only follow a part of what this is doing, because what I'm going to do here is going to be a recursive subroutine, which also means if you have not taken cisp300 or cisp360, this can definitely look confusing. Okay, so don't worry if you're not fully understanding it. It's okay, not a problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is to say, is it an array? Because if it is not an array, I'm not even going to bother with any further processing. Kind of makes sense, right? Okay. And then we'll say for each $a as key to value, do the following. Okay, seems to be okay. But we also kind of want to print something. I'm going to specify the output as a string, and we'll initialize this to an empty string. So in this case, we'll say output dot equals to UL is fine, unnumbered list. Okay. And then for the end, we're gonna close it. Is that okay? In other words, I want to use a list to show the individual items of this particular array so that it's bulleted, it looks nice that way, okay? So each item is going to be an LI, right? It's going to be a list item. So we have dot equal to LI, bracket LI, and before I forget, I'm going to close it. Now we go back and say, okay, what is inside each item? Is that okay? All right. So the first thing we want to show is the name of the thing. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So we want to say output dot equals to the key itself. Okay, just dollar. Okay, dollar key is fine. Okay, there we go. And perhaps we want to specify something like this. Okay, equals to. I mean, just to make it look a little bit nicer. Is that okay? Cool. All right. So here's the fun part. What if the value of this key is by itself an array, an associative array?
So you do the same.
We call it, yeah, we called it again. Okay, so we'll have to make the determination. Okay, so we say traverse array $v. Now, but the part that is kind of important now is we have to specify an else. In other words, what if $a is not an array? Well, if $a is not an array, we'll just print it out. If it's a number, print out the number. If it's a string, print the string. Does that make any sense? Okay, so we'll just print it out. So we'll just say $output is, okay, dot equals to is fine because it's an empty string at this point. We really don't need a $= equal to, but $= equal to %a is fine. And then now we need to specify the return value is $output. So this is okay, first of all, I'm gonna check to see if this works. So we will go ahead and go to the right place to call this thing. So we'll confirm that the file is already uploaded, and we'll put it here. So we're going to say print traverse array. I don't need the entire files. I just need to use, why not? We'll find out everything there is about files as a super global variable. Okay? And then we'll check it out. We'll see whether this works the first time or not. I'll be surprised if it does. But you never know. Okay, we'll pick up another file. That one is too big. Pick up this one. Click open. Upload. It only says uploaded file equals 2, but there's no recursion. Huh. I'm pretty sure it got uploaded because it should report at least the name, the temp name, and so on, but it does not do that. That means it failed isArray. So that means my understanding of isArray may be mistaken. Finds out whether a variable is an array. What about associative array? Okay. Oh, okay. So you can see if there are array keys. But the problem is array is not working. Oh, we can just do a var dump. Nope, it's not here. Okay. Then we'll do a var dump and see what we can see here. Var dump files. Okay. Just refresh. There we go. Well, it's okay. It shows us that upload file is an array itself. It has got 5 items. The first item is a name, which is the string of CPU design.circ, which is the name from my perspective as the client. When I upload the file, it has that name. So it has no path information here. So it's not we don't need to use base name, but it doesn't hurt either. So this is a long way to answer that one question, but since we're here, we can look at all the other things. So it identifies the type of this file as applications/octet stream, which basically means the browser doesn't know what it is. So it's telling the server and go like, an octet is a byte. Okay, so this all this is really saying is it is a byte stream, which is telling us nothing, because the client doesn't know what it is. The temp name is tmp php fx1pf0. The error is 0, which means we don't have an error. And it even reports the size of being about 5 kilobytes. So this is all the information that you get out of the $_files variable. Is that okay? let's upload another file. Remember that gibberish file that I renamed from a PNG? Let's see what it is, what it's reported as. So we go back to browse, go to the gibberish thing here, which is actually a PNG file. We open it and then we upload it. So we can see that the name is the gibberish that we have chosen, and the browser doesn't know what it is. So even though we know it's a PNG file, but it is reported as octet stream. But later on, when we call the system command call file, it still identifies it as a PNG, which is proper, because it really was a PNG file. So let me do another experiment. We're going to move it back. Okay, we'll move this file back to autofocus.png, and then we upload it as something.png. Okay. And this time it reports it back as image/png. In other words, the browser only reports the MIME type based on the extension. That's all it is doing, which may or may not be reliable. Any questions about this part? No?
So for the homework assignment, if we just use the MIME name, is that okay, or do you want us to?
For the homework assignment, did it ask you to check it?
I think the notes sort of imply that. They also mentioned about the MIME name.
Okay. Well, it also mentioned the MIME name itself is not sufficient. So let's check it. Currently, your project has the user select a set of pre-uploaded files or images to attach to their article. Modify your script so they can now upload their own image. The add script needs to require an image upload. The edit script should have the option of changing the image. It doesn't mention anything about checking the MIME type. I think the MIME type is in the instruction, in her instruction,
notes, yeah,
but in her notes, but not in the assignment.
Yeah.
So if it's not in the assignment, I don't need it. For grading purposes, I don't need it. But if you're actually doing web development, you need to check all that stuff. Okay. Yep.
So, just back to that base name.
Uh-huh.
The reason that it went into the root file was because you didn't put a path name in front of that.
Let me go back to the source code first, so we can actually look at the file. Oh, no, wrong window. Should be here. Okay, so we are looking at which base name? My name or?
So in the upload or in the move.
I mean here.
Yeah, there. Okay, so you have a comma and then you have base name. Because you didn't put a path name in front of that, is that why it went into root? Because this is part of the homework assignment. Where are we supposed to put the path name in?
So where you're going to move it, it's going to be like this. So for you have to create a folder first.
So let's say you have an image file.
Yeah, so you're going to have to do something like this, image / and then concatenate with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
you
that's
have
what
to
you
have
need
the
to do.
folder first.
So that's what you need to do,
That's gonna
assuming
be-
your folder is called image or images.
and your image is then under the root.
Not the root, but the folder that contains the script itself. This is all relative.
Okay.
This is all relative.
Because before you went into the root, or did it just go into the? Without that, it went into the file that I cut it, right?
It went into the same folder where the script
Where the
itself
script
is in.
Yeah, but you want
Right.
to go to a subfolder.
So that
Yep.
means that's why the admin.
Right, exactly. And that's why you want all the uploaded files, to go into a separate folder. So there's no chance to overwrite anything that is important to you. So if you do something like this, it also means that you have to create a subfolder first in Linux. So to create a subfolder called in Linux, you go to the folder which will become the parent of the subfolder, and then you can use the command called mkdir, which stands for make directory, and then the name of the folder, like make image in this case. Now, you have to be extra careful in this case, because when you use ls, which is looking at the attributes of this particular folder with a -LD, you can see that me as a user has read, write, execute access to the folder. The group also has read, write access to the folder. If you read Carol's notes, she already has told you guys what to do to open it up for write permissions.
It's read execute.
Using the chmod, schmod command.
You mean it has read execute?
Sorry?
Already.
Okay, so this is where things can get a little bit complicated.
No. I'm saying that you said read write, but it only has read execute.
It only has read execute for group.
Group, yes.
Yeah, this is for the group. This is for the user owner.
Right.
This is for the group owner. This is for everybody else.
Right.
So what you want to do is to allow group write access.
Well, just do 777. I think that's where.
Okay, 777 is dangerous. Okay, because
I know, but for the nothing was
777.
working, I just did 777 and started.
Okay, so this is where I can kind of mention it to give you an exposure. Nothing really bad is going to happen on this server, okay? Because we are all friendly and we know what not to do to each other's folders, right? Okay, but on a commercial system and you have an account, then you have to be extra careful. Because okay, let me scroll this up so the people in the back can see the entire thing. Because the way the screen is set up, sometimes it's hard to see the whole thing. So when you specify 7 is specifying read, write, and execute. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
They already have execute right now. So,
Correct.
so adding the.
But there's
write,
no.
Yeah.
But there's no write access.
Yeah.
File permission, ownership, that sort of thing is by itself a 1-week class in the in CISC
Could you
323.
also go over recursive, so like somewhere they say -R,
Mm-hmm.
so
Dash uppercase R.
dash uppercase R, right?
Right.
So like change mod dash uppercase R and then 777. What does that do?
Okay, so let me see if this is what you meant.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then 2 spaces and period.
Huh? And then period,
Space,
right?
Period, yeah.
Okay, so this is really dangerous.
I
Because it
think
is
if I understand correctly, it is saying not only this directory but any directory underneath.
all subfolders.
All subfolders of my current folder.
Yep.
I have full access.
You change
Given to everybody.
not only you, but everybody has full access to everything from here on.
Yeah.
Yep. So that is not a very safe way of doing things, okay?
Oh, well, nothing was working, so this works. So.
On this particular server, okay, the way I set it up is you only need to allow group write access.
That's what I tried first. That for some reason didn't work. So
You mean you try this?
I tried this. I tried change mod G plus W and then space period.
But period refers to the current folder. You want to use it on a subfolder.
Oh. So
Not
that
the
was
current
right.
folder.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was the reason.
Okay, so let me try the, okay, let me take this back and see if it works first, okay? Because this should fail. So when I run this, it should fail because the current permission of the subfolder does not allow anything to be written into it. So I'm gonna re-upload this file, but this time I changed the script already, and it does do the right thing. It reports fail to open stream, which is the destination where I'm moving it into, and this is inside the subfolder of because I'm trying to move it to image/autofocus.png, but image as a subfolder has not been opened up yet to group permission. So now I go back to the command line, add that group submission thing, okay, add it back, go back to the script, refresh. It should allow it now. So it does, it works, it allows it. Then we can use a ls image, and autofocus.png is in fact created into that folder.
G plus W is for group.
Yeah, group add write permission. That's what the plus is keep everything that you already have, but in addition, add write permission to it.
Which part is for group? The left, right?
Huh?
Which part is for group and user?
G stands for group, U stands for user, and then O stands for others.
No, I mean in the file.
In the file.
Yeah, when it says dash, it means
Oh, you mean this part here?
yeah.
Okay, so when you look at this representation, the first three letters represent what the user owner has access to.
Reading, writing,
Huh?
read, writing, execute.
Yeah, but only, okay, there are three critical owners to each file, okay? There's the user owner, which is the end user itself, the actual single user. There's the group user, and then there's other, okay? O stands for others. So when you look at these two names, T Ouyang and T Ouyang, the first T Ouyang refers to the user owner. The second T Ouyang refers to the group owner. Okay? The way I set up your accounts is I add Apache to the group, to every single one, to the group of every single one of you. So if you allow the group to create files, then Apache can do it, which is relatively safe because you don't have to open it to the entire world. You only have to open up to the group, which is only a small selection of people. So if you look up the name of any one of you, okay, I'm going to do an ID here of one of you. Okay, I can pick on Amanda because I remember her username. So her group is. Oh, okay. I'm looking up backwards. Okay, so when you look up, www.data, which is the user ID under which Apache is going to run, it is a long list. Look at that. So when you look at this ID, the user ID is 33, the group ID is 33. That is irrelevant, but it belongs to all of these groups. It belongs to. Okay, where's me? I'm here somewhere, I know. Okay, let me do this. I can now search. Okay, so here's me. So my account, or I am a part. Okay, the other way around. www-data is a member of my group. It is also a member of Amanda's group. Is also a member of your group, is a member of your group, and so on. So as long as your group membership has write access, Apache has write access already. So you just have to do the G plus W to allow write access to the group and not use the 777, because if you use 777, it means everybody can create files and modify existing files in that folder, which can cause issues if this is a shared system out there in the world, and in the same system you have other people who know a lot about Linux commands. They can potentially mess up your files.
So if we're looking at the stuff, we can see everyone else's folders on the database, but we can't access other people's folders. Stuff when we're logged into.
That's a good question. Let's find out.
Because if we go to the WinSTCP, we can see everyone's folders if we go up from the class, but you can't.
Okay, I'm going to pretend to be YUF, okay, which is a user here, okay, and I'll go to the home folder. Oops. And I'll pick on one particular person. We'll pick on. I know some of you is smart. You have already done something to protect your folder. Good. Okay, I'm gonna go here. You can see I cannot go there, right? Let's pick on someone else. Permission denied. Go to someone else. Permission denied.
Right.
Yep, because I set it up so that people cannot
look at your work and.
Well, okay, yeah.
Okay. But if we were at a work environment, can we usually get access to other people's folders, or is it up to just your?
It depends on your IT team.
Okay.
If your IT team is security aware, You should not have access to other people's folder unless they say, okay, we need this folder to be open to this group of people. Then your IT people should be able to set it up so that your people have access to that shared folder. But by default, I would say the safe way of setting things up is not to allow people to access the content of other folders.
Usually you only have access to a certain point, and then it says, no, you do not have access to this. You don't have access.
Well, when I set up the server, on ARCCIS and also on the Power server, there are specific things that I do not let you guys delete because those are important things, and I don't want you guys to mess with those things. And the system administrator can set up the file protections, the permissions, ownership, and stuff like that to kind of limit access. But as far as this project is concerned, you have to create a subfolder and then add group write access to the subfolder, and that should work. If it doesn't work, let me know, because that means my script is doing something funky to make it not work. But we just observed that it worked, so I'm assuming it should work.
Okay, so I have a question. Okay, so we were using, it was in my 300 class, we were trying to update our indexes, but I don't know what happened. It was in the beginning of the semester when the new stuff, and we had to remake our index page and use the new one. What happened? Was it bad access for all of us, or was it?
It depends on which index you're talking about. If you're talking with the top level index,
Yeah.
okay. Let me show you what I mean by the top level index. So when we go to the student folders, okay, I'm going to pick on another class here. Okay, this is corresponding to a index, but it is not index.html. It is index.pl.
Yeah.
This is the file that you're not supposed to touch.
Okay.
If you create another file that is index.html, then the system will now have to say, okay, if you do not specify index.pl or index.html or index.php, which one should I use as the index page? And we just specify the folder. So if you create an additional index file in the same folder, that can mess up what it appears to the instructor.
Oh, okay.
So that's why you don't want to do anything at this level, and you should limit all your files to cisw whatever class. So inside this folder, you have to use your own index page,
Gotcha.
but not the folder that is the parent of this particular folder.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, sorry, about the assignments.
Yep.
I know that we had that week where we all weren't sure what assignment was because we had the missing assignment. So I saw the due date on there. You're going to make the upload file one due on
10th
the 10th.
of December.
But the other one is going to be due in a couple days.
Yeah, it's going to be due on Sunday. Do you think it's possible?
Which one?
The lost assignment, the one that we.
I mean, a lot of us have other classes, and
Okay.
like I have a giant exam on Monday. I have surgery next week. I have moving this weekend. I mean, I don't.
Okay.
So why do all
Do
of
it.
that? Because you are going to check it, the very last thing that we accomplish, right?
Let me
You're not
look at the
checking
schedule.
on Monday, saying, okay, did anybody finish this thing on Sunday?
Yeah. Is it possible? I mean, I know if we're gonna have an exam, say for the final, can we turn in this?
When
like,
is
the
our
day
final
before?
exam date? I know
No,
finals
it
start
is
on
the
the.
14th. It's
On the
Thursday.
14th?
It's on the 14th.
I also
Okay.
have a
At
question.
5:45 p.m.
I also have a question. When our syllabus that you had assigned has class 440 and a whole bunch of different other
Oh.
Wasn't the
information.
syllabus for this class.
Yeah.
Right, because that's
Yeah,
that's
'cause
copy
I-
from another
I
class.
just wanted to let you know that when we signed it, it didn't. I was looking at that. It said December 11th at 8 a.m. I was like, this doesn't seem correct. So.
Yeah, I don't think we have talked about any one of these topics. Not yet. We got 2 weeks to do it, right?
But I guess
1 week now.
I'm begging for time because I know that a lot
You don't
of
have
us
to
still
beg.
have
You
stuff.
just have to let
Yeah,
me
it's
know
there.
that
But like he has said so many times, after the final, he's going to look at our homework, right? So then, what is this due date next week? It's meaningless.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
about to say, like, you haven't
It's
actually
just a
been
lot of
upholding-
stress.
You haven't
Well,
really been,
okay. I-
haven't really been
Grading.
acknowledging
Like-
the actual due dates of things. You just
Right.
been saying you're gonna grade everything on the last day.
Yep.
So like we may keep mentioning the due dates, but is there really any point? That's just kind of confusing if we're not gonna
But it
use
is
them.
still like she's
You
saying
kind of
it's
need that to
just like
pace yourself.
2
Though.
weeks ago, I resubmitted an assignment about.
You don't need it to pace yourself?
No, I mean, I just feel like I spend a lot of time working on these things and I get them half done because I just run out of time. And then it's just a frustration, but yeah, to have more time would be really, really good.
You actually have the entire duration of the class to do all the assignments.
Yeah, basically.
Do
Like
we?
all the way until the 14th, yes, all the way until the class ends. The assignments have not had due dates for like a month.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the other stuff, I mean, that we've turned in, that's what
I
we turned
mean,
in. Because we're
we
not
haven't
supposed to
been
change
doing-
them,
we
right?
haven't
Has them
been
all
turning
open
in
though,
work.
still, so if you.
Yeah, they're all
touch
open.
something, Like, I didn't do one assignment,
But
I'm
we're not
working
supposed
on
to turn in things late and we're not supposed to change our database.
I cannot tell.
That's
No,
what
yeah,
I cannot
he changed
tell.
that. He said that he stopped doing the snapshots of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if
So
you
like literally
resubmit the
all
assignment, you know,
Yeah.
it does say it's late.
Okay, so I think this looks better now. The 7th and the 14th. Okay, with that. Yeah, these two are the last two homework assignments. You know, even though there were more on Carol's list, I think we're gonna stop with these two.
Okay.
So we're doing the lost images and the, which one again? Sorry.
The lost image assignment is due next Thursday, which means 1 week from today. And then the file upload, which was assigned like last time, is now due a week after that, which is the day of the final exam.
I mean, either way, the due dates are still kind of meaningless.
Yep. Well, once we hit the stuff that we have to kind of keep making modifications to, then the due
Well, it
date
all
doesn't really
goes
make
to-
sense.
It all goes to the same
Not
assignment.
everything. The initial assignments are kind of standalone and
Yeah,
independent.
I mean, the standalone ones I've done as best as I
I
can.
mean,
Yeah.
I have not found it efficient to treat them that way, and I don't know, I thought that there was an understanding of that, because every single thing I remember learning in this class is something that is implemented into the final, so I've been working on everything on the
Mhm.
same page, because you've been telling me not to turn it in.
Yep. Yep, that's right.
Really?
So,
So
like,
I didn't need to make like 8 different blog folders, so I kept the assignment as it was when I turned it in.
Yeah, but even then, when you change the database, your first one doesn't work anymore. It has like no values in it.
Yeah, I actually recreated it. in
But I
another
can still
database
read the
somewhere.
source code.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I do read source
So
code.
then I'm doing
Yeah,
like
the
you. I
database-
have
yeah, the
I have
data-
9 versions of this assignment.
Yes, I do. I have now 6. This is
yeah,
block
like
6.
I started making different versions, and I'm like, this is stuff.
On
Stop.
admin.php, always runs.
Yeah, we have sample,
Although it did keep it so that if I really messed up, I could go back to what I did.
I have
Right.
like
I have like 3 of them.
9 versions. Within those 9 versions, I have old and not working.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I told you guys how to back up your entire database and then zip up all the
I hope
files.
you're able to go through the code.
I don't want to keep like 10 copies of the same
did.
database.
Oh, when you go to work, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know I don't have to now.
Yeah, but this class is helping you to prepare to become a web developer. That's why it's called a web developer
Well, I
certificate,
understand that,
right?
and that's why you explain so many
Yeah.
of those things. But that
Yep.
doesn't mean I'm going to like engage in things that will waste my time in the present sense. I understand that I will use these skills and how to use them in the future, but I'm not gonna do extra work.
Unless it is necessary, right? Yep. Okay. So.
Are you going to grade the assignment?
So what's going to happen is, after the final date, I'm going to go to your folders, and then I'll go back and see how far of your project has come along. So let's say someone can get all the way done up to passwording, okay? So that person will only get the scores up to passwording. If
So
someone,
it just seems to me like the only reason why you really mentioned the due date is to say
Is
this
pace,
is the
to keep your
time-
pace.
Is to say that this is the time you should have this
Yeah.
done by if you don't want
Yes.
to end up feeling overworked.
Yes.
But so many people are working at their own pace that for them, They're probably fine. I'm fine.
I've been stressing this whole semester, I'll be honest.
Me too.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Well, you know, it was great because we had Carol's notes and Carol's videos, and then you know we were going on her stuff, and then it stopped. You know, and
Yep, she
that
mentioned to me-
inside information. We were I was. After that, you know, I'm pulling at straws, trying to get, you know, stuff from other classmates. You know, we're having little group assignments, you know, group help assignments.
Good, you should do that. That's what you would be expected to do in a work environment.
Right. So that really helped. But you know, I mean, like for me to like regurgitate this information like on my own, it's. I mean, I learned a lot of things in this class, but I don't know how much I'm going to retain after this class. I don't know. I think
You don't have to retain a single thing because everything is on YouTube.
True.
I'm just kidding you.
I know.
Are you the only one in some props?
Never
Because
retain
everything
anything
is
in any of
video.
these
I'm the only one
classes until
remaining.
I practice it later.
We used
No
to have a
program
box
ever
cover, the guy who's teaching
anything.
visual basic,
They
he would
just
upload his stuff
practice
to.
it.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
Carol would
bench-
periodically
bench
upload, you know,
program.
very
Like,
specific
if
things like a
the first,
15-minute,
8 years
10-minute
of
kind of
programmer's
video
life
just to
is
say,
looking up
this
things.
is how you
Yeah,
upload
I
something,
like
this is how you use plugins, and so on and so forth. I'm the only one who recorded like
It's
full,
no, it's
you know,
normal.
length, you know,
It's part of the
sessions on each
process.
class.
So I mean,
So I'm
if
the
you
only
don't
one remaining.
enjoy like
Kids
working with others in that respect and like googling things, and you're probably not going to enjoy
Yep.
programming.
Right. Yeah. Especially it's fun.
But I would like to point out, you know, even though this is a class setting, you know, I'm not going to fire anyone. Okay, you know, there's no danger of being fired, and as far as I'm concerned, everybody who's still in class, like physically here today, I don't think any one of you is going to fail the class. Okay, you know, but in a real work environment, it's going to be different. Okay, in a real work environment, okay, you guys can tell me what is it like in a real work environment as a web developer.
Well, in my experience, you either know it or you don't.
You
and
might
if you don't, then the job
Now,
doesn't last.
This is a class, you know, my job is to get you guys the material, okay, you know, which is sometimes it's by sample code, sometimes it's notes, sometimes it's me just demonstrating how to do something. But when you go to work, okay, you know, you come from the development environment. A lot of times you will encounter things that you have not seen before. Okay, you know, we are going to move on to this new operating system, you know, this new server, and this new programming language, and you're going to write a script, web script, to do whatever. Okay, so you kind of have to learn on your own too. Once you get out, you know, into the real world. So so learning how to use Google is very important. Knowing how to evaluate Stack Overflow, which post is actually credible, which one is not, is also important. Being able to work with your classmates can be important. Okay, depends on who you're working with and in what kind of relationship. Because you don't want to just copy somebody else's assignment, right? You can sit down, you can talk about, okay, what is this concept? How do we do it? That is important. So my intent is by the end of the semester, I just want to give you enough exposure to different aspects of writing scripts in general, okay, PHP or otherwise, and just giving you enough exposure to concerns of security, okay, because that's one thing that I think is not emphasized in a lot of classes. They just talk about, okay, this is how you upload something, this is how you run a script, this is how you query a database, but they don't really take into consideration, what if someone is trying to break into your website? Okay, that's kind of important. So that's my intention, and I think missing the last few assignments is not a big deal. Let me go back to her original schedule. So this is her original schedule. So in addition to writing to a file, which is just the logging part, there's also thumbnail generator and graphic generator. Thumbnail generator is basically calling a particular subroutine to take a larger image to create a smaller thumbnail. And you can cache the smaller thumbnails too, so once you generate the smaller thumbnails, they live in a particular folder, so it's very quick to reload it and display that. Okay. And then graphics generator is how to create pie charts and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. But now that we have JavaScript that is capable of doing the same thing, doing this on the server side is not really exactly the thing that you want to do for simple graphs. For complex graphs, yes, okay, you want to generate it on the server side. But for simple stuff, you can actually use JavaScript to generate it on the client side. So I'm okay with not including those two last projects in this class, because I think they're kind of like, yeah, it's nice to have, but not necessary. The most important part, if you as you mentioned, what you can actually retain, interacting with the database, absolute must.
Yeah.
Okay, how to process a form, absolute must. Okay, how do you handle the post and the get variables, absolute must. Session variables, absolute must. File is kind of like, sometimes it is important and other times it may not be that important. But the topics that I just mentioned earlier are musts. And we got those a few weeks ago, so we got some time to practice those. Functions, really important. But how you use functions is not something that we have actually talked about. We don't have any exercise actually to do that. Okay, you have a 400-line program that is one monolithic piece. Okay, how do you turn it into something that's easy to debug, easy to understand? That we haven't talked about, right? So what are you guys going to do after this class? Sorry?
Have a beer?
Have a beer?
Right? Or after this class ends?
Both. You can always have a beer as long as it's off campus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So after the beer, what are you going to do? I mean,
Just one more.
But why are you guys here in this class to begin with?
To learn.
To learn, but why are you trying to learn this stuff? I mean, you can learn all kinds of stuff. ARC has all kinds of classes. Funeral service is probably useful. People always die.
For success in our future.
In your career?
Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean that you guys are either foreseeing or you see positions where you work where you say, okay, if I know how to do web scripting, I can move into those positions? Is that true for some of you? No?
I'm a database management. My mom works for the state, and she's a senior business analyst.
Okay.
For the judicial side, she works with the Oracle applications.
Okay.
And I'm database management, and I want to be able to know and understand things. I'm a newbie, so I'm almost done, but I feel like I have so much more to learn, and
there is.
It's coming at me so fast, and
yep.
I'm trying to retain to everything learning.
Mm-hmm.
It goes over my head, but I feel that this is important to understand. There are different languages. There's this is that. You have taste of, okay, like I could kind of do this, or I could do that. I think it will help a lot.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, you probably have a specific reason why you're here.
This was available in my time frame. Basically,
okay.
I want to learn about this programming for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
why did I take PHP? Because it was being offered. It wasn't that I was dying to learn PHP.
Okay.
I just wanted to learn scripting language. So.
But now you understand what it can do, right?
Yeah,
it's a matter of time to learn more and to refine your skills in programming.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, it's a little bit strange because it's kind of a personal interest. I was developing a game, and most of my staff either gave up or died, and I realized I was suddenly the head programmer, and I was like, I should learn some more programming.
But this is a very specific kind of programming.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Mm-hmm.
I knew to make the experience the type of experience I wanted, I would need to also understand the web aspect of it and understand
Mhm.
how to interact with my user base through the web.
Okay, okay, I can see that.
And also, I felt like because I already understood web code, because it was a casual hobby in
Mhm.
middle school, that would be a good way to refresh myself on the concepts.
Mhm.
And yeah, I kind of just want, I'm very fascinated by learning how I relate to the world around me with my computer, which has always been the best means for me to do so. And I would like to find a job that implements these skills that I have learned here
Mhm.
so far, because I'm not quite ready to move on from web code to something like C or Python yet. I want to finish understanding this concept first.
Mhm.
But so while my ultimate goal is, I wouldn't even just say a game, because I kind of have multiple multimedia goals. Like I kind of want to have a bit of a multimedia empire of my
Mhm.
very own creation. But in the meantime, I would love to get some type of any kind of job that would use the skills I've already learned.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about you, sir, over there? Other than the beer.
Well, I'm working just on retiring, being retired, and looking for a new career as a retirement career,
Right.
so I don't just drink beer all the time. So I'm getting my certificates in web development, web publishing. The last degree I got was in film.
Okay.
So the idea of visual communication on the web
Mhm.
and telling stories that way is what I was interested in doing.
Okay.
That's actually oddly very close to my situation, except like in reverse. I'm thinking of taking a break and focusing on my film goals
Mhm.
and building a website to facilitate them.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like a lot of, security concern from what you guys are telling me, what you're about to do.
Well, I think that understanding security is important to not being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Which is why I am mainly aiming for network security related certificates
Mm-hmm.
that overlap with my web certificate goals. And I'm even ultimately going for a network administration degree because it uses so many of those skills. I know that a couple of trolls, a couple of jokester teenagers with knowledge of web scripting can completely ruin your media empire or personal blog. I have moderated image boards before.
Mhm.
I have been a moderator during wars on IRC. They are relentless. They will find out exactly where you live and destroy your life. I don't want that to happen just because I decided to put my face out there.
Okay.
Didn't Disney paid
Okay.
ransom on their movie because it was stolen? I think it was like a year or so ago. One of the Disney movies, Master Print, the computer was hacked. And,
Oh, right.
It was taken as a ransom.
Yep. Yep.
I'm from Turkey, and my cousin, he owns anti website, like for the spyware and
Anti-malware.
Anti-malware website.
Yep.
And when I changed my major from anthropology. I have my AA in anthropology, and I changed it. I was like, do I wait to go to nursing school, or do I, 5 years, I could be done with a new major and have my bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to him about it, and he said that, internet security is one must-have to have, and also, the C#
Mm-hmm.
to learn that for if you want to get into coding and
Well, it's one
securities.
programming language. I mean,
Yeah.
C# is just a programming language, but you don't have to use C#. But I think this class, for those of you who have inclination to computer security, combining what you learn from this class to computer security classes can be really useful, because now you can actually see from the perspective of scripting how certain bad things can happen. You can poke around. How people can poke around. How people can look at your form. Okay, because your form is wide open. Okay, people can just right click, so source code, and they see exactly what your form is. So now they can formulate, a get or post reply any way they want to, right?
Yeah.
So if you start to use, variable names that sounds like, field names in a database, they will pick it up. They will try out and try to do different things. So if your post has a particular variable that says, admin equals to false or 0, somebody's going to try and say, okay, I'm going to turn it on and go like admin equals 1 and see what happens. Right? So, this class can lead into that direction too. For those of you who really want to get more into programming, I didn't really teach you guys how to program in this class. Okay, not a lot. But if you want to do that part a little bit more proficiently, you can take cisp 300 or cisp 360, those other programming classes, because that's when you learn, how do you, turn something that's really big and messy into something that's well structured, using functions and object-oriented programming. It will take time. It's not going to be done in one single class.
See, the interesting thing is that I know of that, but with this programming, it has been like, if I touch one thing, it broke. And then I spent the next 3 hours just trying to figure out what did I do. So if something is working, I don't want to touch it anymore. Okay, it's working, just leave it alone. Don't change it anymore.
But having programs breaking all the time is reality. It's true for almost every kind of programming. And only through that process, you will actually learn how to structure your program so that when your program does break.
I agree with you, but there is a value to it, like of your own time.
Mm-hmm.
How much time do you want to spend in trying to figure out that why your broken program is not working, then you're starting all over.
But that's part of the learning process. When your program is not working, you are learning how to debug a program.
I need your help with that. So.
Okay, all right. So I think okay. I haven't heard from you. And a few other people. Do you want to say something about why you're here? Or where you're going to go after this class?
Well, let's see. My wife died, so nobody wanted to hire the whole person. They don't say it, but they don't want to hire it, so I didn't have enough skills. So my friend said, go to school. And I looked at schools and I said, I could get Broadway here and grants. So it was like, go to school, getting paid to go to school. So I came. And I went all through this class. The coding the other stuff is not that difficult. Coding stuff, it's kind of like learning a foreign language.
It is.
And this is the last class. If I finish this, then I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But class has been difficult.
Okay. And what about you?
No, I have pretty much taken most of the computer information science classes. I took all of the network classes. I took most of the security classes. Figured out I didn't like any of that. When I did Linux scripting, that was kind of where I felt a little comfortable and thought, well, this sounds, and I never considered programming before, so
Okay.
I kind of winded around everywhere. I took Java, I took C++.
Oh, you
and
took C++?
Yes.
Okay.
And I kind of realized I don't want to go in that direction. Web development seems more
Okay. Okay, but when you mention web development, what kind of work are you talking about? Back-end stuff? So you might want to take CISP 350, even though it's quote-unquote a programming class, it's database. It's
Oh yeah, no, I've taken
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Oh, you have taken that?
Yeah, we're in it together.
Oh, okay. Yep. But are you going to find, a place to apply, what you learned in all of these classes?
I hope so.
But not yet, right? You're not in a position to make use of those skills yet.
Not yet. No.
Okay.
And and I think that junior college really gives us a taste of different things, and then
Yep.
we polish our skills, in the higher division classes. I feel like I don't feel confident enough to work in the industry yet, but I think probably if I get.
But that's why they have internships, right? That's why they have
Yes.
student internships where you're not leading a project or
Right.
even be a principal member of the team,
Right.
but you're a student intern where they give you exposure and they say, okay, you can help us test this code. You can see if you can diagnose the
Right.
problem, but they're not relying on you 100% to get the product out the door. Yep.
My friend who got me into this he works at HP.
Uh-huh.
One time he was talking, he said, well, if you give so-and-so $100, he can teach you everything you know, but you still have to have a degree to get in.
To get a degree, right? To
Yeah,
put it on a
get
piece of paper.
degree, but to learn the stuff, you can learn it in a month or something.
I don't think so, because the kind of stuff that I teach in this class is actually, the accumulation of, like some 20, 30 years of experience in various fields. So, so I think, you cannot learn a lot of stuff that I talk about in this class just from, a book or watching a video. It's really time that matters. It really is putting in the time to do it. I mean, when you guys said, okay, my program just broke and I do not know how to fix it, I have to spend like several hours to fix it. Well, guess what I did for the past 20 years?
Problem solved.
See, there's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like the environment that I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, there are utilities where I can step through the code
Mm-hmm.
and see each and every field, what is the value, why it is the
Right, right.
working. So it is a lot easier. And plus, like you said, I've been working
Yep.
here for 20
You have an
years,
X-ray machine.
so I
Yep.
am very familiar with the environment. Versus this thing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I did something or something is not working, period, or
Mhm.
why. Like, I changed something and all of a sudden my sign-on screen stopped working and it
Mhm.
wouldn't do anything. So it was probably some sort of loop problem. And now I'm thinking,
Right. Okay.
how do I, in this environment, find where the loop is? Because it's just not working. So I give up and it's okay. I'll just take my previous version and start again.
But when you recognize that one of the problems with PHP scripting is you don't have a very good debugging interface to
Right.
stop a program, look at a variable,
Right.
and change something in single step. Do all the usual debugging thing. One of the things you can do is to think about, okay, if this is the problem, how do I change the way I program? Okay, you're changing your workflow. Okay. Don't try to write 50 lines of code and then test it. Okay, you write 5 or 6 lines. Okay, if you have an idea, you're not sure whether it works or not, you write a separate program,
I do all
really
that.
tiny.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
Mhm.
do all that.
So through all that stuff, you can discover ways to improve the efficiency
But
of
actually,
code.
I was very interested when I started to loop that how can I figure out why it is looping?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a personal question. If you had to do this class over,
Mhm.
what would you have done differently to make it run smoother? What would you have? How would you have taught this class if you just, if you had time to prepare and?
That is a good question. Let me answer his question first because he's got his hand up. Yep.
I think I could catch this class, but I would have to take no other classes because of the time. I think he wants to find a way to correct his programs quick, but I don't think there's any way to do it unless you have
Okay.
years of experience.
Okay, so to answer your question, the usual way that I teach a class and the kind of homework assignments that I assign they're all independent. I do not have, chained, project type of homework assignments. So that's the first one that is kind of new to me because, I inherited the homework assignments. So I typically, give homework assignments where one would focus on just file upload, okay? That's the only thing you do. It doesn't hook up to a database. It's just upload the file, show me the files that you have uploaded, or render, the image files that you have uploaded. That's it, okay? Another one to work on, regular database items. Another one to work on many-to-many relationships. So each homework assignment has a focus. And I don't like, tedious code, so I'm not gonna have a kind of like a real application, like a blog, application. So instead, each program is standalone, relatively simple, but it really goes deep into the concept that I want to explain. So that's the usual thing that I do with my other classes. Is small homework assignments, very focused but deeper, much deeper, and students have to come up with their own code. I do not supply any baseline code. I only explain the concepts. So that's the usual way that I teach my programming classes. And having a project-based class where the block program is actually somewhat complex, with a lot of logic, this is the first time, and it is. There's a lot of complexity to the program itself. How many people would agree that a lot of time that you spend has to do with the complexity of the block program itself, and not so much with the concepts that we have to deal with? I would agree.
I think it was the fact that it was just this huge thing that had to boil down into smaller pieces. I do agree that that's easier to
digest as a student, especially I have 3 programming classes. We're in 2 of them, and he's in 2 of my other ones. So I mean, we're multiple, students taking multiple, computer programming codes, like actual, coding and stuff. So it gets, it's time consuming.
Now to be fair, I do have homework assignments in my assembly language programming class where the solution is only 5 lines long, and then students complain to me and go like, we cannot get this done in a week.
Well, it's the concept.
It's the concept, exactly. So that's the kind of program assignment that I give. Is it's short. If you understand the concept, you know the concept, you know how to apply it. It is short. It is the time that your time is spent absorbing and understanding the material. That is the bulk of the time that you spend, not the coding part.
Same thing, it works. Sometimes you work like 2-3 weeks at something, and then it turns out to be just a few lines of code that you had to change.
But with this class, because we have basically a big project for the second half of the semester, and everything depends on an earlier one, and then the project itself, also has a certain complexity to it. So a lot of times, we are spending the time to deal with that complexity instead of learning the concepts of how to upload, how to do a join operation, how to handle multi-select with checkboxes. So I would focus on those tiny little concepts and make a homework assignment just to do something like that.
And I liked how you when you started, you're like, I don't care about the fluffiness of the the HTML fluffiness of how your page looks. I just want
the functionality.
And I think that's trying to do all that on top of my HTML class and my database class to make it all pretty and fluffy. I think this is really smooth, and I liked it like that, where you just worked on the function.
So I think I think that's my answer to your question. Is that's my usual way of doing designing my homework assignment. Is that kind. All right.
So now, what is the progression from this course to the natural progression?
The natural progression from this class?
Yeah.
I would, it depends on what you feel, because because you guys come from completely different backgrounds, right? I can identify a few people with some programming background. Some people have taken classes, or some people have worked as developers and programmers before. So for those people, the natural progression is really just to go out there and do stuff. Okay, maybe take a database class, to kind of deepen your understanding.
Over the last 20 years, I've taken pretty much every course, but I'm stuck with what I do, right? So either I have to give up that, which is coming pretty close to that, or give up what I learned, because I learned all these languages, and if you say a code in C++, I cannot.
Okay, so PHP is interesting because there are a lot of open source products, like Moodle is written in PHP.
Okay.
So if you want to participate, you can become, quote unquote, a volunteer to to join the Moodle team, because you start to use the product and you go like, okay, some people complain about a certain feature not working.
Right.
Okay, you need to understand object-oriented programming first, okay? Because Moodle is using object-oriented PHP. But once you have that, it's really boiling down to everything that we have already talked about in this class.
Yeah.
How do you communicate with the database and PHP code? It's just the object-oriented part is new. But there's a certain market for people who maintain open source products that is written in, say, PHP. So that would be a possibility, is to, work in that kind of environment, be a consulting, type of entity.
Yeah, because yesterday I think I stumbled upon your notes on Linux. I don't know how I did that, but
I have a question about
So-
the PHP is different from the Windows system like ASP something. So if I want to learn ASP, so is it similar with PHP or different? Totally
Okay, so the question, I'm just repeating the question so the mic can pick it up. So you're asking about the difference between ASP and PHP and how much you learn in this class
Yeah,
is applicable to ASP?
Totally different.
Okay, so let me try to come up with an analogy, okay? This class is like Spanish, okay? I'm hoping it's foreign to most of you, okay, Spanish. And let's say ASP is Russian, okay? They're two different languages, okay? But when you're programming, you're not really just learning the language itself. Programming is the process of writing. It's like composing an article. You're trying to write an article, trying to argue for something. So the logic behind the words, behind the punctuation, is the same.
Yeah.
It is just the last part of writing it out. Okay, am I writing in Spanish or am I writing in
I
Russian?
took so many programming language classes. It's
Yeah.
so different from the PHP. I had a hard time in this class.
PHP is actually common to a lot of programming languages. PHP borrows from Perl, C, C++, and many other languages. So it really should feel familiar to a lot of people, unless you come from a Visual Basic background. Then it looks kind of foreign.
I learned Visual Basic. I feel so easy. And this class, as you don't draw the picture first. You like.
But that's not the language itself. That is the thinking process.
Yeah, but this language is upside down. Like you process all the result first, and then you draw your picture. Like it's different from other language. So
Is it?
So if like you do
But that has to do with.
exercise first to see if.
But that has to do with the nature of a web script, because all web scripts, regardless of the programming language, is going to receive the request first, and then your script runs in order to generate the HTML document to be rendered by the browser. That part cannot be changed. It's the same with PHP, Python, Perl, ASP, Java. It doesn't matter what programming language you're using, right? So that part has to do with the fact that you're dealing with web scripting. You're receiving a request that can be a GET request, that can be a POST request. Somebody click a button, somebody click a link, somebody did something. You have to find out what that request is about. You have to process the request first. Then, based on the result of processing that request, you generate the HTML document. So that part has nothing to do with the language.
Just get used to the process. Web developer is different sometimes.
Web processing web requests is different from a lot of different other types of user interaction. It's not event driven. If
this
you're
was
dealing.
the procedural language, the way we studied. So basically, it's like
We're-
a procedural language.
Mhm.
So if you know the control structures, then all you have to do is run the simple.
I can tell you when I think of programs. Okay, when I look at Carol's assignment, I do it as my own, as a homework assignment, as if I'm a student. I do not see PHP code. I do not see any actual programming language. I see the sequence. I see the conditional, constructs. I see the loops, but I don't see the actual for each, if, function, and stuff like that until I really need to type it. In other words, the language is the least of the concern. That is the very last thing that has to go through your mind when you write a web script. The first thing that has to go through your mind is, What is it? What does it have to do? What does it have to interact with? Does it access the database? In what way does it access the database? What does it need to display? Okay, a table, how many columns, how many rows? Okay, what is the form that I need to display? What kind of stuff is in the form?
Yeah.
Yep.
I just kind of think of all programming related tasks as how many layers deep am I trying to communicate with the computer in? Like how many degrees from machine code am I trying to communicate? Like if I'm not gonna like literally sit here and list out every layer, but let's say that a common non-programming user typically goes about 2 layers deep. The one layer being their web browser, and the next layer being the page on the web browser.
Mm-hmm.
And then or if you're using like a calculator program, it's the first layer is the buttons on the calculator, and the second layer is the programming language underneath that tells it how to do math.
Mm-hmm.
When you're writing a simple script that's meant to be used locally, you're only penetrating like 2 to 3 layers deep. But when you're doing client-to-server side interactions, you're thinking about how it's being understood by
Mm-hmm.
multiple computers to produce the result.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So one thing that I do want to mention, which is completely optional, I don't need your results, okay? But this is a personality test. Many of you may have exposure to something like this. A lot of corporations do personality tests to assess, what their employees are really good at and try to place people into the right position. There are certain personalities who handle abstract concepts better. There are other personalities who can handle details better, okay? And typically you cannot have a person that can handle everything good at the same time, equally well. Okay, so people have different strengths and different things that they're really good at. With programming, being able to deal with abstraction is very, very important. Okay, what do I mean by abstraction? You look at one particular sequence of doing something, you look at another sequence of doing something similar but not exactly the same, you extract the common parts. You go like, oh, I see, there's a conditional statement here because sometimes we go this way, sometimes we go that way. Or you see that there's a repetition, okay? So there are certain types of people who are more suitable to do programming, or something that requires abstraction like math, physics, that sort of thing. And then there are other types of people who are more detail-oriented that can do other things really well. Like I would make a really poor bookkeeper. Okay, I will be sued out of existence. Like the first month that I become a bookkeeper, because I lose track of stuff. Okay. When you're programming, the first thing that you should think about is not the language. It's not, oh, what is the syntax of doing something? How do I specify a loop? How do I specify a conditional statement? Where should I use curly braces or not? That is the last thing that you do, okay? The first thing that comes to my mind is the logic of what I need to do, regardless of the programming language. Especially when you learn multiple programming languages, then you start to lose that language dependency thing because I start to confuse myself, okay? Because I know how to program in maybe 5 or 6 common programming languages. So you see how I type variable names. A lot of times I miss the $sign because you don't need it. You don't do it in C and C++. Okay. Sometimes I miss the semicolon because you don't need that in Python. So I think if you take a test like this, you will start to find out whether you have the kind of, I don't want to say natural talent, but whether your personality lends itself to a specific kind of task. I don't want to steer people away, okay? But I do want people to kind of understand themselves a little bit better, so that you can go like, okay, I've taken this particular class. It may not be for me, but I can still use this and kind of lean in a different direction where I'm good at. I can tell you what I'm not good at. There are many things. Art is one. Okay, if you say, tech, design a website that is pleasing to the eyes. That would be a big challenge for me. I mean, people can talk about color coordination, font coordination and stuff like that. That is foreign to me.
Same here.
Just every website, black background, green text. It's perfect. You don't need.
Oh, I don't
anything
use
else.
colors at all. It's all black and white.
But you gotta go in there and at least change that white to green so your computer looks like the Matrix. Doesn't every hacker do that?
And the letters are falling, right? Just like that.
Yeah, I mean.
Yep.
Everyone has. I'm sure you have that program on your computer. It kind of like comes with most of distros.
There are people who are good at details. I'm not good at details. Okay, I keep forgetting stuff. Okay, so for any type of jobs that require attention to details, I'll be fired like on day 2.
So the CISP 300 class gives you the ability to create a program, then just use one of the languages to write.
In CISP 300, they do not even talk about a particular actual programming language. They use pseudocode.
You can take you can take you can write down the pseudocode, then
It is the concept that matters in CISP 300. There's no syntax. As long as the professor understands the logic that you're specifying, it's good.
yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to deal with the syntax, but then the focus is really on the concept. Okay, because if you get rid of the syntax, okay, and you get rid of the semicolons, the punctuations, and stuff like that, is there nothing left in programming? No, there's a whole bunch of stuff still left, right? What is recursion? A subroutine calling itself?
Instead you will use array,
Yep.
loop, everything,
Yep.
but without the details, like
Yep.
semicolon.
What is the concept of sorting? How do you sort an array?
Normal sort.
Yep, merge sort, selection sort, but those are the slow ones.
Yes.
The fast ones are
Binary
merge
sort.
sort. Merge sort is one of the best.
Merge sort.
Yeah, merge sort is one of the best. There's also heap sort, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's the concept that matters, okay? Because when you talk about algorithms, you can write it in C, you can write it in BASIC, you can write it in PHP if you want to,
Yeah.
but it's the concept that matters. So, if the programming language itself is an obstacle, either the programming language itself is really poorly, designed, but PHP borrows a lot of elements from other common programming languages. So once you learn PHP, you can kind of transition to Perl, you can transition to C, you can transition to C++ or Java with relative ease because the syntax is really close. But Visual Basic is different.
Yes.
Yep.
Books are given out in 1, 2, or 10 years old. Are they
Okay, so
PHP or?
So there is a whole bunch of books, on a cart in room 152. Those were Carol's books on her shelf, but she said she doesn't want to keep those books or move those books to the temporary buildings. So that's why they're all available to students. You guys can go there, check them out, take whatever you want.
Only 2 left.
Only 2 left? Okay, I'll bring some from my own shelf. Okay, so I'll replenish that cart.
But how good are those books?
Huh?
Because things get obsolete pretty fast.
If it is on concepts, it is not going to be obsolete anytime soon. If it talks about SQL, it probably will still be good. Okay. If it talks about HTML3, yes, useless. HTML4, useless.
Yeah, but
CSS
just gonna use
depends
that.
on the
Or
version.
useless. Oh wait, that's what Carol taught the entire time in her last class.
Like I had an old age version of the HTML book that Janet is using, and she
Mhm.
kept telling me, you need to buy a new book. I said, I'm not spending $100 and some on a new book. I already have this book. And finally, yesterday, she gave me her version of the book. Like, I'm retiring, so you can have this.
Mhm. Well, okay, when it comes to HTML, PHP, SQL, and stuff like that,
Yeah.
the web is better. I mean, it really is, dynamic. You can do search. When I read a book, I have to turn pages and look up the index, look up the table of contents, right?
The good thing with the book is it has exactly what you were learning. So
It's very
it's
sequential.
very sequential and it's very.
I cannot learn
easy to find.
sequentially.
See,
I'm not a sequential learner. And when you learn your personality, you will start to learn your learning style. Some people are not sequential learners. I am not a sequential learner. And some people are sequential learner. If things are introduced out of order, they need to put everything back into order. I learn in different orders. I learn by demand. In other words, I have one thing to do. I will try to do it. I come to a place where I go like, okay, I don't know how to do this part. Then I try to look up something to learn it. Once I learn it, I proceed. I continue with the task. So I only learn, when I need to. So I guess you can call it JIT, just in time learning. It's learned by demand. I cannot read a book from cover to cover. By page 4, I'll be sleeping.
Yeah,
Right?
I learn in my own too, but I have to be kept honest, and this is why I'm taking this class. Otherwise, I just procrastinate.
Yep, that's one good reason to take a class. Yep.
So these books are like maybe 4 versions behind the books now.
Okay, a lot of times, when they upgrade a standard, the old one would still be applicable. So if you don't understand, HTML at all, having a book on HTML4 is better than none.
Yeah.
Okay, at least you learn some of those stuff. So by the time you learn about HTML5, then you can just say, oh, this stuff is old, they don't use it anymore. But for the most part, they still use a lot of elements in HTML4.
So for the basics, it's okay.
For basic stuff, it's okay. A lot of PHP 5, stuff is still in PHP 7. So just because certain things are now deprecated and people don't do it that way anymore, should not prevent you from
So
reading an older
that is
version.
one of the problems by learning on the net, that you find all those examples and then you have to be at the right place to learn that these are deprecated things they should be using this.
That's why you go to php.net and not rely on Stack Overflow, because php.net has the most
Like for
up-to-date
HTML, I've been
documentation.
going to W3 school and I
W3
found
school
out
is
that
also
the
Yep.
number of things are okay.
Exactly. You have to go. You have to know where to go to find the most up-to-date and authoritative, information. For C++, you go to C++. You spell out C++.com. That's where you find the actual NCC standard
Okay.
for that particular language. For MySQL, you go to mysql.com. They have their own reference manual over there. The reference manuals are not easy to read, but the information is there. So that's why it is important to kind of do that. Okay, I think I missed 2 people. Yep,
I
go ahead.
just think that when it comes to whether or not you want to look up your information on this site or that site or a book or whatever, I think all information is worthless unless you can decide why it means something to you. Like for instance, I might not
Oh,
be.
I'm curious just for the sake of curious.
and that's valid. Any reason for information being good information to you is valid. But like for instance, the date that a thread occurs on Stack Overflow might be more valuable than the information contained within it, because you might find out it was posted in 2009.
Yes.
And obviously they're not working with the same thing you are if it was in 2009.
For certain things, recency matters. For other things, it may not matter as
Exactly.
much.
That's just one example of how it's really, you have to parse through this information and decide, why am I using this or not using it?
What's 430 is? The class is 430 data structures.
Oh, CISP
Yeah.
400?
430.
430? That's data structure.
Is that C or?
Okay, that's okay, so let me go back to my
440, I don't want to take it, maybe 2.
Okay, so when you look at the classes in the CISP sequence, CISP 300 is the first one. Then you take CISP 360. From CISP 360, you take CISP 400. Okay, and I can even talk about, each one, 300 talks about programming concepts, not even C++ or a particular programming language. 360 is C++ specific, so you learn about the syntax of C++. And then 400 is object-oriented programming. So you learn about object-oriented programming concepts like classes, inheritance. Huh?
C++.
They're all C++.
Yeah.
So this is C++, this is object-oriented programming. And then from here, you go to CISP 430, which is data structure. Data structure is interesting because they talk about, how do you represent data using, let's say, a tree, okay, or using a heap, or using, a linked list and stuff like that. Okay, so that's data structure. And then
C++.
no, C++ is 360.
So this class no language false.
No, it depends on C++. That's why there's a sequence. In order to take 430 and be successful, you have to take 400 first. But in order to take 400, you have to take 360.
But I'm not sure I should take a 400.
400, 430?
Yeah, maybe it's not.
It depends on your objective. If you're transferring, then you want to take 430 because it is required for your transfer degree. If you are
just one work.
for work,
Yeah.
depends on your work. So it depends on
it's
what
not
kind of
C++,
programming.
it's-
It is in C++, but the focus is not the programming language itself. The focus is on the concepts of data structure, like binary search trees.
It's like
you know,
concept of
the concepts of how you organize data
Oh.
in the computer.
Okay.
So it is a little bit more abstract compared to the other classes, but at the same time, you learn all the basic stuff that you need in order to represent different types of data.
So maybe useful if you go to project development.
It is a requirement to transfer, and this is the last of the lower division classes in most four-year universities. So I would assume that it must be practical and useful for a reason, because otherwise, why would it be in the lower division class of every single four-year university?
I don't need to transfer. I just want to find some experience, just for the big project like experience. I don't know it's helpful.
It depends whether it's going to be useful to you. Depends on what kind of data you're processing. If you're dealing with database processing, it is probably not going to be very useful. On the other hand, if your job has to come up with the
Website development, we don't need that.
not exactly. It has nothing to do with whether it's website development or stuff like that. It has to do with what kind of data you're processing and what do you need to do with your data. Okay, I can give you an example. Let's say you're dealing with genealogy. You're trying to figure out the ancestry of people. Okay? Then you need to understand the concept of a tree. Okay? Because this is how we represent ancestry, is to use the concept of a tree, and if you know how to traverse a tree in a particular way, then you can easily figure out people of the same generation, of the same ancestor. Okay? So that would still be useful if that is what you're doing, is genealogy, and you try to figure out okay, I want to find out how the correlation of reasons of death versus the family tree. Okay, is there a particular pattern to it? You need data structure. Okay.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if your website just is really about something else, something like blogging and stuff like that, no, you don't need to understand
Maybe
data structure.
some people working in the C++ or C# area maybe need that.
No, it has nothing to do with the programming language.
Oh.
I can do data structure stuff in assembly language, in PHP. It has nothing to do with the programming language.
Just the concept.
It has to do with what objective is your program. What is it processing? And what is it supposed to analyze? What is the input? What is the output?
just a concept, focus on concept.
The programming language is just a way to describe how to do something, right? Okay. How do you do dishes? Okay. Okay. Someone who speaks Farsi can talk about it
So
in
you
Farsi.
recommend
Some people who
not-
speak Cantonese can talk about it in Cantonese. Some people who speak Russian can talk about it in Russian. But it is still doing dishes, right?
Yeah.
You use detergent, you have sponge, you have scrubber, you have brush, you have running water, okay? Different words, yes. Same stuff, right? So the language has nothing to do with the task. Washing dishes, okay, doing laundry, okay? So if all you're describing is washing dishes and doing laundry and stuff like that, then you may not need a class like cisp 430. On the other hand, if your job is to, I don't know, diagnose problems, okay, then the language is not important because you're an automotive mechanic, okay, the car comes in, it won't start, okay. When you're thinking about that problem, does it matter what is your mother tongue and your natural language? No. You think about terms like, not even in words, but you think about terms like, is the battery hooked up? Okay. Is there a connection issue, corrosion issue with the connection, battery connection? Is the starter okay? Is the fuse blown? You think about those concepts, but not so much in a particular programming language or a particular language.
So if you go through that, you go every language you can figure out the data tree, something like object, something. Is they all similar? Just the concept and theory is the same thing.
Data structure has to do with how data is represented in a computer. So you read in the answer screen information. How do you represent it so that you can process it? Another common thing. Okay, this is a good example. You know how we write mathematical expression like 2 times 3 plus 5 and so on and so forth. How multiplication takes priority and then we can use parentheses. Okay. So if I feed a particular expression into a computer, how do you write that program to parse the expression and give me the answer? It's just a string as an input, right? 2 plus in parentheses, 6 plus in parentheses, 6 times 2. Okay, what is the answer? How do you write a program to evaluate that? That is, well, partially data structure. Partially, but not.
It's the advanced of CISP 300. It's the advanced class of CISP 300.
300 is not advanced.
No,
300
I mean the structure one. Is
data structure, 430. 430 is the second last class. There's one last one, which is CISP 430, CISP 440. So this is a co-requisite. So if you want to take 440, you have to be taking 430 in the same semester or prior.
But
Um,
we discuss same, yeah?
That's a math class basically. CISP 440 is a math class. It is kind of abstract and mostly just theoretical stuff.
Which one, the 430 or 440? The
440 is the math class.
okay.
And then there's also CISP 310, which is the assembly language programming class. It's most people do not like it because it's really low level.
Yeah.
I talk about it at the transistor level.
The one that you make files, all those things.
This is
Oh,
the one
I see.
where students have to kind of look into a processor and
Yeah.
find out how a processor is, the components inside the processor, how they all interconnect and
I've
stuff
seen
like
that.
that. You've seen it?
I've seen some of your stuff published.
Yeah,
It's
yep.
like
You
a
can watch
schematic.
all of my videos. I don't mind.
Like a
I mean,
schematic.
I
or something.
submitted the assignment. Is it okay that you check it if I did it correct?
Oh, okay.
I already submitted.
Let me
then
see
it's-
if Izzy has a question because
Okay.
she has been waiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I've got a debugging issue.
Okay. I can look at yours.
Okay, yeah.
You can send me an email too if you need to go. But let me answer her question first. I like the pins on your hat.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I got the hat for the. I actually cosplayed Asuka for a little while from the third.
Okay, I will
movie.
send you an email.
Okay.
See
All
ya.
right. See ya. Okay, you got warnings.
Yeah, I don't really care about the warnings right now.
Slamming the door.
So like, what I care about is that when I do this, I get this.
Okay. Empty query on line 239. Okay. So show me line 39. 239, sorry. Yeah. And it also has a undefined variable query too, so that's probably why it's empty.
Oh
So
god, I
we
want
have
to open
look
up in Dream Cancer.
So we have to look up 239 first.
Yeah, I just have to cure this cancer.
What is that?
Dreamweaver is the default program it opens up in.
Oh, ugh.
Yeah. I know, right? Gross.
Who would use Dreamweaver?
Don't they teach art new media in this room sometimes?
No, that's the next room. They don't use this room.
Okay, so this is my line.
Okay, so 239 is the line where it said it complained that query is undefined.
Yes.
Which means, so previously, so you have query defined here, you have query defined here. What about this branch? Do you have query defined in that branch? Nope. That's why.
Okay. Well, where should I define query in that branch?
It depends on what query you're dealing with. So you have a insert query here, but that's only corresponding to the if. If the if fails, then there's no query. You see?
Yeah.
If this if is successful, there's no query even. So by the time you get here, this is unconditional. This is saying, okay, I'm going to run the query even if there's no query defined. So
okay, I think I can probably figure out how to change that with that having been said. All right, yeah, I'll figure that out at home. That makes sense.
it looks like, the first part, this is checking for duplicates. So this is the case when there is a duplicate,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, there's no duplicate, and we want to run the query. This else is corresponding to.
Yeah, this was supposed to all wasn't this all supposed to correspond to this if though?
This else is corresponding to that if, so the indentation is misleading.
Okay.
This else is corresponding to that if.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been struggling with indentation because this program is long.
Yep. You can use beautifiers to help beautify.
Yeah, but those
Okay,
mess
this
me
needs
up
to be
even more,
indented
and they're
too.
all garbage. I don't
Yeah,
want
so this
anything
needs-
other than me typing my code.
This also needs to be indented, so from here to here needs to be indented on the. Yep. There you go. Okay. Very good. Okay, now it's easy to read. Okay, so if you have a query undefined here, that means it is not this nor this. So edit row submit does not match edit row submit change, and it also does not match edit row submit change. Why do you want to check it twice and it's the same thing? I think one is supposed to be an edit, the other one is supposed to be add or
Well,
create.
Quite frankly, this is my attempt to directly transcribe your own code so I can understand how it works.
Okay.
So at this point,
So these two should be comparing different things.
Okay, so what should be those things that they're comparing?
Well, from what I can tell here, this one is doing the update, and so it should be corresponding to an edit. This one is inserting, so it should be corresponding to add or insert or something like that. So the string that you're comparing to probably should not be edit row submit.
What do they make it add?
No, not this one, the other one, what you're comparing it to. So keep the one that you already have. Okay, so this, remember this line is 229, and then go all the way back to see what strings we have defined.
Well, what I was going to do is I was going to see if Notepad would give suggestions.
Oh, does it give you?
I do believe that it does.
Okay, maybe add entry. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's it. I think I got confused about those two.
Ah, okay.
Let's see here.
So that may be it. And that's exactly what you did too when it generated that error message. Was you were trying to add a new row.
So what has happened now is I have created a new row, and it has a date somehow, which these don't, and it has no content.
So that has to do with the insert statement. It's inserting something into the database, but the individual fields were empty.
And this is the insert statement that is relevant to that.
So that means insert fields somehow there's nothing there.
Do you think that anything is written wrong here? It mustn't be because it's running.
Well, it's not so much it is wrong than it's missing something. So
That's what I'm
insert
saying.
fields really should be initialized earlier somewhere up here.
Isn't it?
Well, it looks like it is supposed to be initialized, but it is obviously not entirely initialized.
Could that be due to a syntax error?
Okay. So it now depends on whether we have form fields defined, which is going to be earlier. So if you want to go back up a little bit.
It does seem to be defined.
Okay. So form fields is defined to be string title, string author, and string content. But string author is now author ID, so that's why that may not work.
When did it get defined? When did we establish that it was author ID?
Because we changed, remember, we changed the way we handle author. Okay, which version of your code is this?
This is the most recent.
But is this after we use a table to represent users or before? What is the structure of the database?
The structure of my database is one that corresponds with this, I believe, because I have ran it under that criteria before, and it has been successful.
Okay.
This was basically written on 1019.
Oh, okay, I see.
There have been updates made, but basically this has been written 1019 and continually debugged since then.
Mm-hmm.
So the content would be the content that is written here pertains to the content that the stuff that would work with the way that the database was formed on 1019. And I do not remember deliberately altering the database.
Okay. So let's go back to the browser. What is it complaining on line 319, 273? Undefined index. Okay, so it's complaining author is undefined, created is undefined, title is undefined on line 273. So when you can go up a little bit more, scroll up on the, oh, this is the top already. So that is suspicious.
Yeah, are you suggesting that these definitions need to be changed?
No, let's go to line 273 and what it's doing. So what is line 273 doing? Okay, so it's printing. No, that cannot be the case. It's probably another file.
What is?
Line. Oh, wait. What line is that? 273. So 273, it is complaining about index is not found. Can you scroll that way? So it's complaining about order field name. That is that's the index, but it is not found in this array. So we want to find out how orderable fields reversed is defined. It is defined here. So when table th is called, is that after this has run, or is it before this is run?
I believe it is after the for each is ran.
Okay.
Because I've got a note here that says second part, so it completes this and then begins to do this.
Okay. So orderable fields has content ID, created, author, and title. And then the other one is reversing it so that it goes back to the integer. So it will look up each name and then go back to the integer. And that's why, you know, when you get here, it should be displaying ordered by, and then, you know, a particular, you know, number. It should be an integer. Can we go back here? So instead of showing that the table header is displaying, you know, title, author, and then, you know, single quote, blah blah blah, ordered by, and then it's empty.
Does it have something to do? Does this have something to do with why this also appears wrong?
Because that's when it's generated. Line 273 is what generates this. So when you look at this code, I can see a few problems.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, href equals to, not angle bracket.
Oh, okay. Probably help.
And then get rid of the close angle bracket.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Are there any other places where I do that? Looks like I got it right over here.
yeah, okay. Okay, so it's not going to fix the other problem, which is the reverse lookup thing. But let's run the script again and see what it's going to complain about. Okay, it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, so but it's still complaining about line 273, which is complaining about this or this. But I think these two are the same. They're basically the same. Look up to the reverse order field. So can I look at them?
It seems like something would be wrong with how I am trying to achieve the result of this then.
Mm-hmm. So I would look up any call to table th and make sure that that is after line 264. Can you look up where table th is called? Okay, so when it is called, it is in fact after the table is fine. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's the right order. Okay, cool. Okay, so now go back to the table th, the function definition itself. Okay. All right. So order field name is a parameter, so that's the parameter, which is the index. Orderable fields reverse is a global, as you put it here. The orderable fields reverse is a global, and orderable fields reverse is initialized up here. Okay, it is an empty array, and it is supposed to reverse content ID, created, author, and title back to the corresponding integers. That's its job. Now all of these are lowercase, and let's go look up, you know, the calls to th again. Okay, so author, title, author, created, and then can you go back to the definition? if it's a typo, it would complain about it. You know, the variable does not exist. It's null. Can you click on the browser so I can look at the error message? Okay, so it complains about title twice. It complains about author twice. It complains about created twice. And it complained about those in sequence too. Because each time they call it twice. Like the plus is one call, the minus is one call, the plus is one, the minus is one. That's why we see duplicate messages. So now the question is, why is that array either not defined or those particular items are not in here? Let's go back to the screen.
I think maybe it would be interesting if I clicked on one of these to show you what happens.
Yeah,
when
but
I do that.
I already know that it doesn't have that because the order by is supposed to have an integer. It could not look up the integer. That's why it complained. So I already know what is missing. The question is, why is it missing? Because this part is supposed to have initialized that. One way you can do this is to do a dump var or dumped variable, dump_var, and then just dump, oh, I can see.
What?
It's orderable, not orderable.
Of course it is. Oh man.
That
Okay.
might have been it.
So
Okay,
what I might just need to do is actually just start like making sure all times I call a variable it is spelled correctly, because it will not always tell me.
Well, we'll see. Okay, that got rid of those messages on line 273. Now we are down to, it's still not going to fix that problem. Because that problem has to do with,
But it has yielded a different error this time.
Correct.
The way it has behaved is to just sit there and act like nothing has changed except the URL.
okay, so now let's fix all of these, because that's kind of important too. Because that might have contributed to the problem that we're trying to fix. So now it complains about line 319, and the problem is preg replace expects at least 3 parameter 2 are given. So let's go to line 319 and figure out what is happening on 319. Okay, so this is the one. Okay. Okay, so this is what's happening. Okay, so replace. So you want to look up replace and find out what it means. I think you're missing what it is supposed to do the replacement for, which is row. But look it up anyway. Look up preg_replace. And click that name. It needs 3 parameters, which is the pattern, the replacement, and the subject. You're missing the subject.
Oh, okay.
So right before the close of the parentheses, I think it is supposed to be comma, $row, open square bracket, and I think it's content, the field called content, yep, in quotes, you need to quote the whole thing, single. And then you need a close bracket, not a close square. Yep, there you go. Okay, alright, so that should take care of that problem. Different. Compilation failed, missing the close parenthesis at offset 5 to 319. Let's go back to 319. Okay, so we're just having a mismatch of parentheses.
That's matched to there, and I think it wants something to go with this, but that doesn't make sense because that's part of like my replacement thing.
Is that closing that one? Is that a close paren or close curly brace?
This-
The one to its right.
The one to its
Two.
right here.
There you go, yeah.
That is a
Curly? Or is
yes,
it
that's
round?
curly. It's curly.
It's supposed to be round.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Oh.
Mismatch. Parentheses. There. Looking better.
Hey, I got an H. I have an H.html. I have nothing.
Well, but it does indicate some undefined variables, so you need to fix those, even though they may have nothing to do with the bug that we're seeing right now. I think it's one uppercase quote, right? Not lowercase.
Let's see.
Unless you change the name of the.
Of which I use. You're right. See if that solves anything. Nope, still no problem.
Okay, on which line? Okay, let's fix all the mornings first, or the notice. So there's one on 289. It complains about index spot. It doesn't sound like a variable that I defined.
Huh, it only exists there.
Okay, so look up increment decrement but without spot, because you know obviously it is something related, but it's not
Oh wait, like I should look up that in my code.
in your code. Okay, string index. Okay, keep going. Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
Oh, there's spec.
Uh-huh.
With
Okay, there we
spec.
go.
Yeah.
So it's a spec and not spot. There we go.
Okay, that submitted something. It didn't do it the way that I wanted to, but it did submit something. That is progress. So 116, the issue is content ID value is not defined. So what the last is content value. Oh, I spelled it differently.
There we go. Although that would not be the reason why it's not storing something in your database.
Need reprinting. String multi-delete submit is not defined.
Probably it's a spelling thing.
Yeah.
Look up str molt delete.
I probably typed multi instead of molt.
Okay.
Okay, good. Now I need to just trying to remember if I actually finished making this script or not, because it's not behaving correctly.
Well, it's doing something. It's just not inserting the title. But it is inserting the content, even though everything ends with HTML. Now that HTML probably has to do with the p-reg, this thing here. Why do you have a .html after the end of the paragraph tag?
I have no idea, quite frankly.
Well, that's where your .html is coming from.
Okay, that's a thing that I
Because
did.
it is a part of the string.
That's a thing I sure did.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so we're getting better. Okay. So we got, I see a mismatch of the fields because, I think the first field is supposed to be the first one, the second one is, okay, your author and your subject or the title, author and title are kind of offset.
Oh, where does this happen?
When you go back to the form, go back to the browser, see how this is supposed to be here, and this one is supposed to be here, and this one is supposed to be
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So when you generate that editable row, you have an empty TD for some reason. So you have to kind of get rid of that empty TD element. It's in your generate editable row function. Or at least in mine, it's called editable. Editable row.
Okay, so that's here then.
Well, this is the caller. It is the
Oh yeah,
subroutine
that's
that
just
is
calling
happening.
it.
Yeah.
This is the function.
Yep. So the first TD is that's the problem because it's
Okay. So
That's
do
where
I
you-
want to get rid of this line then?
well at least for now because you're not supporting multi-delete yet. So you just want to comment it out but not delete it because you might need that. Okay. But it will still not be fixing the actual problem because it just looks better, but it's not actually, putting your author into author and then your title into title. Okay, but give it some values. Okay, so now you have to find out, why the insert is not getting those things. Insert statement is, but your insert statement is just picking up whatever you turn in. Okay, let's go back to the browser and look up here. So it says title is 3, author is 3, content is 3. So we know the variables are there. Okay, let's look up the insert statement. How you formulate the insert statement.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find where I last used insert.
Probably a little bit lower. This is the preparation of the insert fields. That's your insert.
Yeah.
So I'm betting you that when you get here, somehow the insert fields is not the way it's supposed to. So we need to find out what insert fields has. So you might need to do a print of that somewhere.
Well, I establish it here, so would I want to print it out up here?
Hold on. Scroll up a little bit more. Okay. It's not picking up some of the fields. That's the issue. Okay, I think I know why. I think these 3 lines belong right after the curly brace.
Yeah, I did notice that those are just kind of floating there, which is weird.
I think that should fix it because you only got one of the fields actually initialized that matches the symptom.
Oh, hey, there you go. Okay, I think with this, I can continue on with my work.
Okay.
I think I need to call a ride home though because my back just started acting up.
Oh, do you usually take a bike or
I usually
take
walk,
the bus?
but
Oh, walk.
But that's like I've been doing a lot to make sure that I don't overwork myself, and I was not successful in that this week.
Where do you live? Approximately.
On Garfield Avenue. Really close by.
Well, I'm going home, so I can give you a ride if you're
I've
okay
heard
with
teachers
that.
getting in trouble for that. You
Huh?
sure?
What?
I've heard teachers getting in trouble for offering students rides. Are you sure?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm just
if
offering
you're
a
not-
convenience.